Chapter 1896. The only thing they were worried about now was that Li Fengzhu, who was in the center of the water formation, was only at the early stage of foundation establishment. They didn't know how long his magic power could last. Once the five elements soul-capturing formation collapsed, the fire ape would definitely escape. Within the flame forest swamp, even 7 golden core stage cultivators wouldn't be able to catch up to or kill the fire ape. Attack! Sun Shangkong clenched his teeth, and the pure water pearl made a turn in the air and flew toward the fire ape's inner core. Zhong Chengguang did the same. He opened his mouth, and a misty green brilliance fell on the profound wind bottle. The jade bottle suddenly expanded, and the water within the bottle shrank several times. A ray of brilliance as thick as a thumb flew out. It was the essence of the profound water, and it lingered around the fire ape's inner core. Not only was the fire ape in danger and forced to spit out its inner core, the lightning beast was in even more danger. The lightning beast was about to turn around and roar to stop the fire ape from following it. However, before it could roar, the 5-colored light screen had already enveloped it. The thunder beast was enraged. With a flap of the wings under its armpits, its body suddenly shot up and charged towards the 5-colored light curtain. Moreover, the thunder beast raised its 2 pitch-black arms at the same time. Its 5 fingers flashed with purplish-black lightning as they stabbed into the 5-colored light curtain. Rip tilde tilde the lightning beast actually tore a crack in the 5-colored light screen. Swoosh tilde tilde swoosh tilde tilde swoosh tilde tilde. A series of sounds could be heard. Dozens or even hundreds of large fireballs leaked out from the crack and fell like raindrops, smashing towards the lightning beast's body. Roar tilde the lightning beast was shocked. It didn't dare to use force to tear open the crack. It flapped its wings and wanted to escape far away to avoid the fireballs. However, as the lightning beast flew, the fireballs also changed direction and continued to smash towards the lightning beast's head. Seeing that it couldn't dodge, the lightning beast stood in midair and flapped its wings and hands. Streaks of lightning formed a net and flew into the air. With a series of crackling sounds, all the fireballs were extinguished by the lightning net. However, just as the thunder beast was about to flap its wings again and fly into the air, a crimson whip that was dozens of feet long appeared in the air. It circled in the air and actually turned into dozens of small fire circles that covered the thunder beast's head. The thunder beast bared its fangs again and waved its hand. A streak of lightning appeared out of thin air. Then, with a flick of its claw, the streak of lightning turned into dozens of tiny lightning bolts and flew into the dozens of tiny fire rings. After a series of thunderous rumbles, the fire rings were all destroyed, leaving only the whip still suspended in the air. How strange! A low voice sounded. The short Liu Mingxing appeared near the long whip and sighed, "You are indeed a beast born with the ability to control thunder. I can't wait." Then, he stretched out his hand and grabbed his magic treasure, the sun-chasing whip. With a shake of his magic power, a spark appeared in his hand and flew along the sun-chasing whip to the tip. Everywhere it passed, it grew larger. When the sun-chasing whip streaked across the air like a dragon and hit the lightning beast's chest, the spark was as bright as a round sun. Gar tilde tilde the thunder beast seemed to have a ferocious nature. It didn't know how to dodge at all. Thrusting its 2 hands forward, it actually struck the fireball with lightning speed. A bit of purplish black appeared within the fireball, and then it suddenly exploded. Ouch! A scream sounded. Looking at Liu Mingxing again, his body was actually flickering with a layer of lightning. He fell from the sky, and the sun-chasing whip was in the lightning beast's hand with lightning lingering around it. Take this! The lightning beast flapped its wings and wanted to chase after Liu Mingxing again. However, with a roar, Zhen Yi, Jiang Zhucheng, Feng Shuqing, and their disciples appeared beside it. It is indeed a rank 6 spiritual beast. Even in the 5 elements formation, it is still so powerful. Feng Shuqing's eyes flashed. He said fiercely, "If it wasn't for fellow cultivator Xiong, I wouldn't have dared to face this beast. Let's attack together." Zhen Yi clapped his hands, and a pitch-black ring flew into the air without the slightest flicker of light. Rumble tilde another loud rumble rang out, and the giant green tree rolled toward the thunder beast from all directions with an earth-shattering momentum. Roar! The lightning beast didn't seem to be afraid. With a wave of its hand, More lightning blocked the giant green wood. Go. Jinyi pointed with his finger. The ring flew into the giant green wood. The giant green wood blocked the ring, and the lightning beast didn't notice it. Zilolo, the lightning blocked the green wood and easily destroyed them one by one. However, when the ring suddenly appeared in the middle of the green wood, all of the lightning actually rushed into it like birds returning to their nest. This was the corroding lightning ring that Jinyi had been searching for over 100 years. The lightning eclipse ring appeared at the perfect time. It instantly absorbed all the lightning from the lightning beast. The green wood caught the lightning beast off guard and smashed down. It unexpectedly drowned the lightning beast. Roar. The lightning beast roared angrily. Its entire body spun rapidly within the green wood. Its body was emitting lightning, and it looked like a lightning ball about 20 feet wide. Many green trees were once again crushed by the flickering lightning from the lightning ball and were gradually annihilated. At this moment, the lightning erosion ring could only absorb the scattered lightning from the lightning ball. It could no longer absorb the lightning from the entire lightning ball. Jinyi's face was filled with astonishment. He had a thunder attribute physique and understood thunder magic the most. This thunder corroding ring was something he had specially used to deal with the thunder beast. But he hadn't expected that the thunder beast would be able to break the thunder corroding ring with a simple spell. Attack! Jiang Zhucheng saw that Jinyi's efforts were futile, so he tossed away the transcendent artifact, Wooden Dragon. A staff-like transcendent artifact flew into the air and transformed into a long green dragon. It shook its head and wagged its tail as it charged towards the thunder beast. Go! Feng Shuqing wasn't slow either. With a wave of her hand, she took out a jade peeper from her storage bag. She waved her hand. Although there was no sound, the sound of the peeper was already attacking the lightning beast. Jieming, Qian Han, and Feng Jiyu also took out their magic items and attacked the lightning beast with all their mana. In an instant, light flashed everywhere and the spiritual energy in the air was completely disrupted. Shi Yang had already flown to Liu Mingsheng's side and caught Liu Mingsheng, who had been knocked out by the thunder beast. He waited for Liu Mingsheng to wake up before he took out his own magic tool and guarded his master's left side very cautiously. In his other hand, he held a shiny talisman. The greenwood dragon charged into the lightning ball. Its 1-foot-long tail smashed into the lightning ball. With a rumbling sound, the lightning ball was scattered. Looking inside the lightning ball, the lightning beast seemed to have fainted and was in pain. It held its head with both hands and staggered. This beast is injured. Jiang Zhucheng didn't expect his wood dragon to be effective. He was overjoyed and shouted, "That's what I said. So many of our fellow Taoists died when we attacked it last time. How can it be fine?" Jinyi and the other gold core cultivators charged into the ball of lightning within a few years. As expected, they saw blood seeping out from the corner of the lightning beast's mouth. The purple lightning in the gaps between the scales on its back dimmed, and some pitch-black liquid had seeped into its back. Rumble tilde 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 the lightning beast suddenly spread its wings and soared into the sky. Its 4 limbs spread out and a series of thunderous roars came from its mouth. Pfff tilde the others were fine, but Feng Shuqing spat out a mouthful of blood. His body went limp to the side. The jade peeper's sound was broken by the lightning beast, but Feng Shuqing was already suffering from the backlash of the sound attack. Feng Shuqing was already so heavily injured, but the lightning beast was not much better off after forcefully breaking through the invisible peeper. Azure blood gushed from its mouth as its wings trembled violently. Go tilde Jinyi and Jiang Zhucheng looked at each other. The lightning corroding hoop flew into the air. The wood dragon entered the hoop and rushed toward the lightning beast with it. Sizzle. The lightning beast waved its hand with some difficulty. Lightning flickered in an attempt to block the wooden dragon. However, the moment the lightning touched the lightning corroding ring, it was sucked in. The wooden dragon charged directly to the lightning beast's chest. Just as everyone's faces lit up with joy, they heard a clear whoosh tilde. A fist-sized, purple lightning beast's inner core was spat out from the lightning beast's mouth. The purple lightning beast's inner core was faintly moving, and countless tiny lightning bolts flashed within. Bang tilde tilde the inner core smashed into the wood dragon and the lightning corroding hoop. A fist-sized hole appeared on the wood dragon's body. The lightning-corroding hoop also buzzed. Finally, with a crack, the lightning beast's inner core actually cracked. Zhenyi and Jiang Zhucheng screamed at the same time. They both covered their hearts with their hands. Clearly, they were both injured. With two early golden core cultivators injured, the lightning beast, who was already injured, naturally couldn't avoid it. The lightning beast opened its mouth and tried to suck back the inner core. But at that moment, a cultivator flew out from the side of the lightning beast. This cultivator's upper body had already turned into a beast. He looked like a bull, and his thick body made his daoist robe bulge. This cultivator was Shi Yang, who used the talisman. Shi Yang's eyes were crimson red. His arm, which had swelled to twice its previous size, was wrapped around a thick blue chain. As Shi Yang approached, the chain was activated by Shi Yang's mana. Like a spirit snake, it streaked through the air and struck the thunder beast's back. There was already a lot of blood gushing out from the spot where the thunder beast was. Shi Yang's chain actually hit the lightning beast's back. The huge impact was obviously beyond the lightning beast's expectations. The lightning beast, who was in the middle of sucking back the inner core, staggered, and its inner core was slightly off course. However, the impact of the chain only managed to break the lightning beast's protective light, revealing its true scales. A few drops of green blood actually dripped down. The lightning beast was furious. Its wings trembled slightly, and its entire body crouched down. It quickly grabbed the chain with one hand. A string of lightning followed the chain and struck at Shi Yang, while its other hand quickly burned Shi Yang's chest. It easily tore apart Shi Yang's defense. Shi Yang was shocked. He gritted his teeth, clenched his fists, and punched the lightning beast's chest. -8. Chapter 1897. Peng tilde at the same time, Salar moved. When Shi Yang's fists struck the thunder beast, his own chest was also torn apart by the thunder beast's sharp claws. Bloody innards immediately fell from the sky. Shi Yang's corpse also rapidly shrunk and fell. Zhenyi and the others were shocked. In the blink of an eye, a middle foundation establishment cultivator was so easily killed by the thunder beast. The thunder beast let out a sorrowful cry. It held the place where Shi Yang had risked his life to strike with one hand. It seemed to be in great pain. Rumble. At this moment, between the thunder beast and its inner core, many stones appeared and smashed towards the thunder beast. A trace of confusion actually appeared in the thunder beast's ferocious eyes. It seemed that the 5 elements soul-capturing formation had taken effect again. Good. Let's hurry up and do it. Zhenyi was overjoyed when he saw the situation. He hurriedly said, "Fellow Daoist Xiong, separate the thunder beast's inner core from the thunder beast." Just as Zhenyi said, Xiong Minute was overjoyed when she saw that the two beasts were about to be trapped. She tried her best to urge the 5 elements soul-capturing formation and was about to increase its power again. She wanted to make a final strike before Xiao Hua and Li Fengzhu's magic power was exhausted. But at this moment, a strange change occurred. The place where the unknown pressure had been produced once again produced a fierce aura that rushed straight to the sky. Around this aura, a huge amount of heaven and earth spiritual chi of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth were produced. This spiritual chi was full of blood and strangeness. As soon as it appeared, it immediately produced a huge suction force. It sucked in all the heaven and earth spiritual chi within 100 miles. Wang. The 5 elements soul-capturing formation actually let out a sorrowful cry. Not good. Xiong Minute was shocked. Just as she was about to pour her magic power into the 5 elements plate, the 5 elements plate suddenly exploded and split into 5 pieces that entered the 5 formation eyes. Following the 5 elements plate's entry, the 5 formation eyes were immediately filled with a huge amount of 5 elements spiritual chi. Xiao Hua and the others who were sitting in the formation eyes immediately began to spin. Before the 5 of them could do anything, a kind of oppressive force descended from the sky. A black and white brilliance faintly flashed. The 5 people's 5 elements plate and the 5 magic treasures all disappeared. Xiong Minute and the rest were dumbfounded. Seeing the 5 elemental soul-capturing array collapse without any reason, They were really caught off guard. The fire ape and the lightning beast, who were besieged by the 7 people, suddenly rushed into the air. Each of them executed their natural superpowers and fled in the direction they came from. Where do you think you're going? How could Xiong Minute, Zhen Yi, and the others allow the 2 beasts to escape? With a shout, the 7 of them split into 2 groups and followed the flame and lightning beasts up the mountain range. Xiao Hua. Xue Xue said sorrowfully as she stared blankly at the empty space. Shi Yang's corpse was on the ground, but not a single hair of the 5 people in the eye of the formation could be seen. The sun-moon corona that Xiao Hua had just used was also thrown to the side. Xiao Hua actually didn't have time to put it into the space. Go. Let's catch up to Martial Uncle Zhen. Only he can help us find Xiao Hua. Seeing that the other disciples were all following their own masters, Xiong Yang didn't dare to hesitate and urged Yang Qinglian. Yang Qinglian also didn't dare to delay and pulled Xue Xue. Xue Xue had no choice but to take the sun-moon corona and follow Zhen Yi. 100 miles away, in the underground space of the Fire Lake, Yuan Feng and the other 4 elders, as well as many disciples of the spirit husbandry sect, were dumbfounded as they looked at the 5 rotating masses of black gas and the 5 cultivators who suddenly appeared within the masses of black gas. Who else could these 5 cultivators be? Naturally, they were the 5 formation eyes of the 5 elemental soul-capturing array, Xiao Hua, Li Fengzhu, Qing Hao, Zhu Ming, and Li Mian. The 5 elemental soul-capturing array extracted the spiritual energy of the 5 elements nearby for its own use, and the 5 essences spirit awakening array took up even more of the spiritual energy of the 5 elements. With the power of the 5 spirits and the 4 late golden core realm cultivators, wouldn't the formation eyes of the 5 elemental soul-capturing array be used by the 5 essences spirit awakening array? Xiao Hua and the others were teleported into the 5 spirit formation eyes of the 5 essences spirit awakening array. How could the 4 early foundation establishment realm cultivators resist such a short teleportation? When their figures appeared in the black gas, they were already unconscious. Only Xiao Hua, who was a Qi refinement realm cultivator, had a strong physical body. He only felt his vision darken and fainted slightly. His vision became even darker. That's right, it was like that. The figures of Xiao Hua and the others only appeared for a moment in the black gas. Yuan Feng and the others didn't even have time to see them clearly before the soaring aura and the spiritual energy of the 5 elements pressed down, completely messing up the 5 masses of black gas. Xiao Hua and the others' figures were covered by the black gas, and the 5 masses of black gas fell onto the altar and merged together. The entire altar was boiling with black gas at this moment. Bubbles of various sizes continuously bubbled out, and a blurry pattern gradually formed by the black gas became clearer and clearer. Disciples, get ready. Yuan Feng was overjoyed. He didn't care about the abnormality of Xiao Hua and the others and waved his hand as he shouted. At this moment, a bark-like sound rang out from the black gas. A sharp aura was born from the black gas. That aura was very cold and cruel. Seeing that the Chao Wu's soul essence was about to appear, Yuan Feng shouted, "Collect." The spirit husbandry sect disciples who were already prepared opened their spirit storage bags. All kinds of strange spirit beasts flew out from their spirit storage bags. However, no matter how many spirit beasts there were, they were all suppressed by the aura. Although they didn't piss their pants in terror, they all hid behind the disciples obediently. The spirit husbandry sect disciples all activated their spirit-devouring cultivation method and waited for the Chao Wu's soul essence to appear. However, time passed, very quickly. The soul essence that they were waiting for still didn't appear. Just as Yuan Feng and the other elders were as anxious as ants on a hot pan, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth began to gather on the altar in the air. On the other hand, Xiao Hua was extremely bewildered. He felt his vision go black, and when he opened his eyes again, Zhen Yi and the others were gone. The lightning beast was gone, and even the earth element magic treasure that was before him earlier had vanished. Naturally, the force that absorbed his magic energy had vanished as well. However, his vision was still dark. He couldn't see anything. What's going on? Xiao Hua's body floated in the black gas. He scanned with his divine sense and tried to think of a solution. Unfortunately, the black gas seemed to be very large. Perhaps it was suppressing his divine sense. Xiao Hua couldn't see anything. Just as Xiao Hua clapped his hands and wanted to use the cloud suppressing seal, an almost irresistible pressure fell from the top of Xiao Hua's head. Xiao Hua couldn't react in time and was pushed down. This is bad. Xiao Hua didn't hesitate and immediately used the bright thunder escape. He wanted to fly up. At this moment, a barking sound was heard. Xiao Hua's body tightened and his magic power was instantly condensed. -8. Chapter 1898. Xiao Hua was caught off guard and his entire body fell down. He was greatly shocked. What was the difference between this situation and the previous encounter with Xiong Minute? Xiao Hua did not hesitate. His body shook, and the phoenix celestial body immediately came out of his body. The cry of a phoenix sounded and protected Xiao Hua. Immediately after, Xiao Hua urged his magic power. The flame of the fire essence flame crystal quickly circulated in his meridians and forcefully poured his magic power into his body. Only then did he barely stop his body in the air. Boom! Xiao Hua was like a lit match. His entire body was surrounded by flames, and with the brightness of the flames, Xiao Hua could clearly see the situation around him. Ayo tilde Xiao Hua almost cried out in surprise. He was able to see clearly. It would have been better if he hadn't seen clearly. The pitch-black gas had submerged Xiao Hua's surroundings, and he couldn't see the end of it. Moreover, within the black gas, he could faintly see countless faces. Some were humanoid, some were beast-like, and some were even bird-like, and so on. Damn it, it must be Xiong Min's doing. Xiao Hua did not need to think at all and immediately cursed. That guy saw that the fire ape and lightning beast were about to be killed, so he had the heart to take everything for himself. I don't know what he did with the 5 elements soul-capturing formation. These vengeful spirits must have been captured by that guy before. Although Grandmaster Zhen was prepared, he was on the other side of the valley after all. It was impossible for him to do anything in the formation. Xiong Minute took the initiative to activate the formation, and those gold core cultivators were unlucky. Ouch, eldest senior brother, eldest senior sister, and Shue. I'm afraid they are also doomed. Xiao Hua immediately became anxious when he thought of Shue. He released his divine sense again, wanting to find traces of Shue. However, he immediately thought of the pressure and the faint feeling of teleportation just now, and knew that Shue might not be here. At this moment, a black fog rolled in front of Xiao Hua, and the unconscious figures of Zhu Ming and the others appeared. Senior Zhu. Overjoyed, he was just about to call out when he saw the rolling black fog condense in front of him as if it had a life of its own. In the blink of an eye, a dog's face that was 10 feet in size appeared in front of Xiao Hua. Chow. Looking at such a huge dog face, Xiao Hua turned pale with fright. In his mind, he involuntarily thought of the name of a kind of fierce beast and cried out in alarm. Moreover, the phoenix celestial body flying above Xiao Hua's head suddenly flapped its wings and smashed that fierce dog face into pieces. However, something strange happened very quickly. The phoenix Dharma body only shattered the black gas. After a short while, the black gas condensed again, and the ferocious face appeared again. Xiao Hua understood and slapped his hand. The cloud-suppressing seal flew out from the space and firmly protected him. He calmly looked at Chao Cheng. When Chao Cheng's face appeared, although its fierce eyes were condensed from black fog, they also emitted a cruel and ominous light. It swept across Xiao Hua's phoenix celestial body, seeming to be somewhat puzzled and also somewhat fearful. Then, it landed on the bodies of Zhu Ming and the others. Woof! With another roar, the souls of Zhu Ming and the other 3 immediately flew out and entered the Chao Yu's mouth. Immediately after, a cold wind blew past, and the clothes of Zhu Ming and the others quickly decayed. Their exposed bodies also gradually turned black and decayed in the cold wind. In the end, only a few sets of white bones were left. Even the white bones gradually became rusty and slowly turned grey until they finally turned into ashes. Xiao Hua's eyes were about to fall out of their sockets. What kind of method was this? The 4 of them were all Foundation establishment cultivators. Just like that, they were unknowingly taken by someone, by Chao Li while they were unconscious. Moreover, Their corporeal bodies had undergone such a shocking mutation. However, Xiao Hua immediately understood that this was not some great divine ability, but a kind of deadly poison of Chao Cheng, a poison that was almost incurable. Thinking of the deadly poison, Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed. He looked around again. Of course, since the cold wind had deadly poison, how could the black fog around him not have it? Fortunately, the flames of the fire essence flame crystal were so pure that the fierce flames actually forced the black fog out. With a gar sound, Xiao Hua did not dare to let Chao Cheng attack him first. He activated his phoenix celestial body and spread its wings. Two sharp claws flashed with cold light and grabbed at the black fog-formed Chao Cheng. The wind naturally blew towards the phoenix celestial body. Unfortunately, the phoenix celestial body was not a real body. When the cold wind blew past, it did not cause any harm to the phoenix celestial body. Of course, the black fog of Chao Cheng was once again defeated by the phoenix celestial body and turned back into black fog. Whoosh, whoosh. The phoenix celestial body flapped its wings again, stirring up the surrounding black smoke. Even though the Chowie couldn't take shape, the space where the black smoke was located was immeasurably large, and it didn't seem to have any special effect. Let's go. Xiao Hua saw that the phoenix celestial body was ineffective. The magic power in his body flowed, and he used the lightning escape technique and flew upward. With a peng, Xiao Hua only flew for about 10 feet when a restriction appeared above his head, blocking his body. Xiao Hua hurriedly released his divine sense. Just as he wanted to see what this restriction was, he heard a bone-chilling mournful sound from the darkness all around him. That's right, it was a kind of mournful wail. Following the light, Xiao Hua was shocked to discover that the various faces that were silent just now had now turned into the shape of malicious spirits. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they pounced at him. Moreover, all kinds of bewitching sounds were continuously produced from the black fog, rushing towards Xiao Hua like waves beating the shore. Goldie. This was Xiao Hua's first reaction, but then he smiled bitterly. Ever since Goldie swallowed Yi Kuan, it had been in a deep sleep and had not woken up at all. At this time, it was impossible for it to save him. What should I do now? Xiao Hua was somewhat anxious. He saw that countless souls were crowding towards him, as if they were going to annihilate him. Hong Long Long Xiao Hua threw out several dozen fireball talismans without hesitation. A series of explosions were also effective. The black fog that had just approached him was blown away, becoming dim. However, when the fireballs were all annihilated, the black fog gathered again. Xiao Hua opened the Delusion Breaker Dharma Eye on his left hand, and saw that his entire body, front, back, left, and right were all illusory figures. They were either humans or beasts. They were the souls of the creatures that Chao Ti had swallowed. Buddha's Sarira. Xiao Hua immediately thought of the first ability of the Buddha's Sarira, transcendence. However, when he used transcendence last time, his mind was inside the demonic long banner. Now that his physical body was outside, he did not know if it would work. Moreover, Xiao Hua was somewhat regretful at this time. If he had refined the demonic long banner earlier, he might have been able to succeed at this time. Forget it. At this time, Xiao Hua did not have time to think too much. Seeing that many vengeful souls were crowding towards him again, he threw out another fireball talisman, and used the exquisite leaf scripture. Lin tilde. When the Buddha's Sarira in Xiao Hua's Mudpill Palace shone with golden light, he immediately chanted an incantation. The hidden swastika character on his forehead gradually appeared, and then it quickly spun. After that, it projected an extremely small golden light in front of Xiao Hua's head. That golden light gradually expanded along with the circulation of Xiao Hua's Buddhist mantra. A Buddha's Sarira with one hand pointing to the sky and the other pointing to the ground gradually formed. This Buddha's Sarira continued to grow. Only when it grew to over a foot tall did it stop. The 1-foot-tall Buddha's Sarira flickered with golden light, illuminating the nearby black fog. However, contrary to Xiao Hua's expectations, although the black fog was illuminated, the countless vengeful souls did not seem to be afraid of the golden light and Sarira at all. Instead, they were like flies that had seen blood, risking their lives to pounce over. Looking at the expressions of those vengeful souls, it seemed They even carried great joy. Damn it, don't tell me. I'm a sheep that entered a pack of wolves. Xiao Hua was somewhat dumbfounded, but he did not dare to be negligent. The Buddha's Sarira formed an incantation, and from his mouth, he chanted the Lin word. Once the incantation came out, it immediately transformed into a golden light that covered one of the vengeful souls. Seeing the golden light descending, that vengeful soul did not know how to dodge and viciously welcomed it. However, when the golden light landed on the vengeful soul's body and passed through it, the vengeful soul's ferocious expression immediately disappeared. The entire vengeful soul also became transparent. The vengeful soul seemed to have woken up, and a pious expression appeared on its face. It bowed towards the Buddha's Sarira and said, "Many thanks to the Venerable One," following which, the vengeful soul gradually shrunk and turned into a speck of dust, disappearing to an unknown location. Great! Xiao Hua had already seen this kind of situation inside the devil artifact Long Banner. He knew that the Buddha's Sarira was successful, and he could not help but smile. Following which, he quickly circulated the exquisite leaf scripture, and chanted the Lin word after Lin word. Every time he chanted a vengeful soul, no matter if it was a cultivator, a mortal, or a bird or beast, none of them were unhappy. They all bowed and disappeared. In the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Xiao Hua himself did not know how many vengeful souls he had transcended, but, compared to the seemingly endless amount of vengeful souls, it seemed like a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. This transcendence was actually a journey without end. If it was simply like this, Xiao Hua would not be alarmed. What made Xiao Hua somewhat worried was that his Buddha's Sarira seemed to be a delicacy that all vengeful souls yearned for. Just when he was transcending the vengeful souls, numerous vengeful souls also threw themselves into the golden light of the Sarira, wanting to devour the Buddha's Sarira. Admittedly, all of the vengeful souls that bit down on the golden body of the Buddha's Sarira, as if they were struck by the Lin word, abruptly awakened and disappeared. However, they were unable to withstand the biting of these vengeful souls. It was originally not a complete Buddha's Sarira, and now it was incomplete. Although Xiao Hua disregarded everything and circulated his Heart Sutra, wanting to make up for these incomplete parts, his speed was far from comparable to the biting. Xiao Hua could predict that 2 hours, 4 hours might not be a problem, but what about 6 hours? What about a day later? This Buddha's Sarira would be devoured in the end, devoured by those mindless and unconscious vengeful souls. The Buddha sect's sacrificing body to feed the eagle. I'm afraid this is the outcome, right? Xiao Hua inexplicably thought of an inexplicable story in his heart. And at this moment, a similar restrictive force as before was born again, enveloping towards Xiao Hua. Evidently, it did not want to allow Xiao Hua to circulate his Buddha sect's Heart Sutra calmly. -8. Chapter 1899. Xiao Hua felt the power of imprisonment and hurriedly split his attention. On one hand, he maintained his Buddhist mantra, and on the other, he urged his phoenix body to block in front of the power of imprisonment, trying his best to stop this spell. Xiao Hua's cultivation was still limited, and his phoenix body had not evolved enough. He could resist this power of imprisonment, but it was clear that the power of imprisonment was shrinking bit by bit, and the space that Xiao Hua could resist was shrinking. What should I do? Xiao Hua's forehead was covered in sweat. He saw the vengeful spirits surrounding him, and the power of imprisonment appeared again, but he still had not seen Chao Cheng's true body. Withdraw Xiao Hua's cloud-suppressing seal was already out, but it couldn't stop the vengeful souls, nor could it resist the power of imprisonment. He might as well withdraw it. Then, he opened his mouth, and the Dream Executioner flying sword flew out. It split into 2, and then split again. 8 sword lights flew into the black chi. He used sword plays the world, and recklessly stabbed out without regard for anything. A series of heart-wrenching screams came out. Out of Xiao Hua's expectations, the power of karma on the Dream Executioner flying sword could actually stab the vengeful spirit. Great Xiao Hua was overjoyed, but just as his joyful mood rose, he felt that something was wrong, and his heart was moved. These vengeful spirits were originally pitiful. If they could be reincarnated by the Buddha's Sarira, they could probably be reincarnated, but to be assassinated by the dream executioner, their souls should be scattered. With this thought in mind, the dream executioner flying sword immediately slowed down a lot. But Chao Cheng did not give Xiao Hua a chance at all. The vengeful spirits that filled the sky sped up their biting, and the power of imprisonment became even stronger. Sigh, forget it. Xiao Hua sighed. This young master can't even protect himself, how can I care so much? I don't know when these vengeful spirits died in the hands of Chao Cheng, but today, they can be considered to have transcended. Therefore, the dream executioner flying sword did not show any mercy, and killed in a crisscross pattern in the air, incomparably fierce. Woof! A dog's bark that had not sounded in a long time suddenly came out from the black chi, and it seemed to carry pain and shock. Here Xiao Hua did not hesitate, and urged the dream executioner flying sword to stab towards the dog's bark from all directions. Unfortunately, it was merely a miserable cry, and there was no further movement. Moreover, Xiao Hua's divine sense didn't seem to have discovered anything. Clearly, the cry that Xiao Hua heard just now was not sleep-talking. At the very least, the strength of the confinement was 30% stronger, indicating Chao Cheng's anger. Boom! Xiao Hua once again sped up the circulation of the prairie fire mantra in his body, forcing the flames of the fire marrow flame crystal out of his body. He did his best to resist this confinement force that he had never encountered before. At the same time, Xiao Hua had no choice but to multitask. Not only did he have to circulate the Buddhist mantra to repair the Buddha Sariya, he also had to continue urging the sword playing the world to search for Chao Ti within the black gas. At this time, Xiao Hua was already exhausted. He was unable to think why Chao Cheng, who was so strong, did not fight him head-on. Instead, he repeatedly avoided her. Very quickly, 2 hours passed. Xiao Hua's situation was precarious, and he had already reached the final edge. Not to mention that there were not many Buddha Sariya left, the swarm of vengeful spirits did not decrease at all. Even Xiao Hua's Phoenix Dharma body was somewhat exhausted, gradually unable to resist the confinement force that had not weakened in the slightest. Xiao Hua's face was ashen. He really did not understand where Xiong Minute had brought him to. He simply had a feeling of dying with everlasting regret. Perhaps if I quickly force Chao Cheng out, the situation will improve? Xiao Hua was somewhat whimsical. He did his best to urge the dream executioner flying sword to fly for 2 hours in vain, killing many vengeful spirits, but not even catching a single strand of Chao Cheng's hair. However, at this time, a strange change occurred. The fire marrow flame crystal that had long since dimmed suddenly extinguished. Xiao Hua's spiritual power immediately lost its support. Not only could he not use his flying technique, even his figure fell towards the black chi. Oh no! Xiao Hua hastily used the ethereal steps levitation technique and tried his best to stabilize his body in the air. Just as a strand of scattered grief was born in his heart, an indescribable pressure emerged from Xiao Hua's body and instantly enveloped the entire darkness. Moreover, this pressure continued to rush out of the restriction and enveloped the area within a radius of dozens of miles. Instantly, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth within dozens of miles became completely chaotic. The originally tyrannical fire attribute spiritual energy of heaven and earth became even more wanton, crashing in all directions, rushing towards the sacrificial altar under the fire lake. Moreover, in the fire lake above the sacrificial altar, the originally boiling magma was like frozen ice water, emitting crunch 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 sounds, gradually becoming colder. The fire mice, fire bats, and other spiritual beasts simply could not escape, and were all sealed within. As the magma in the fire lake condensed into grayish-white lava, the fire attribute spiritual energy within completely condensed into fist-sized scarlet-red crystals, floating in mid-air. Looking at the surrounding dozens of miles, these scarlet-red crystals could be seen everywhere, sparkling and translucent to a terrifying degree. Foundation establishment. Xiao Hua immediately understood, and with a groan in his heart, a kind of incomparable happiness filled his entire body, a kind of feeling of surviving a disaster spontaneously arose in his heart. Immediately after, Xiao Hua slightly looked inside his body, and saw that the fire marrow flame crystal within his meridians were completely gone, and there was not much true energy left in his meridians. At this time, this true energy was violently boiling, comparable to boiling water, and had already begun to liquefy a little. It was precisely because of the liquefaction of his true energy that Xiao Hua's body produced a suction force, and as the pressure around Xiao Hua's body increased, the suction force on his body also became stronger and stronger. Great! Xiao Hua waved his hand, and without hesitation, took out 9 foundation establishment pills from the space, and swallowed them all at once. The foundation establishment pills immediately turned into liquid and entered his body. Xiao Hua did not dare to be negligent, and immediately dissolved this pill according to the condensing experience that Zhen Qing had left for him. Foundation establishment pills were indeed foundation establishment pills. An abundant medicinal power rushed into his meridians, and not only did it replenish his true energy, it also accelerated the liquefaction of the true energy in his meridian. The suction force around Xiao Hua's body gradually increased. Previously, there were still restrictions in the surroundings that prevented the spiritual energy of heaven and earth from entering, but in the end, it could no longer be stopped. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth surged into Xiao Hua's body like a tidal wave, and the many fist-sized scarlet-red crystals also poured into his meridian. Ayo, 9 foundation establishment pills are indeed not enough. Xiao Hua felt the liquefaction of his true energy slowing down, and he hurriedly waved his hand again, and 9 foundation establishment pills entered his mouth again, not to mention Xiao Hua's sudden foundation establishment in the space under the sacrificial altar. All the disciples of Spirit Husbandry sect who were guarding outside the sacrificial altar were stunned. After the 5 balls of black gas suddenly appeared on the sacrificial altar, there was no more movement. Only the spiritual energy of heaven and earth continued to pour in, and Chao Chen's soul essence did not appear for a long time. Although many disciples were waiting for the soul essence to appear, how could they not be lazy after 2 hours? Yet, just as they were being lazy, and when Yuan Feng and the others were bewildered, the vision of Xiao Hua's foundation establishment appeared. -8. Chapter 1900. Ayo, why, is someone condensing a core? Hu Yu couldn't help but exclaim in shock, but she immediately shook her head. But, this pressure, is different from a golden core. It seems far from enough. Moreover, the divine sense isn't a golden core divine sense. Only the condensation of the world's spiritual energy is somewhat similar to an initial golden core. Man Yun was also a golden core cultivator, so she naturally knew the difference. Elder Yuan, this is. Zhe Qipeng was also puzzled and looked at Yuan Feng. Inside the formation, there's only Chao Wu's soul essence. Can Chao Wu condense a core? Yuan Feng was completely confused. Could it be those cultivators who appeared just now? Hu Yu suddenly asked. Impossible. Although Yuan Feng didn't see their faces clearly, he could clearly see their cultivation bases and flatly denied it. They're all in the initial stage of foundation establishment. How can Chao Wu condense a core in such a short time? What should we do? Just wait like this? Man Yun frowned. Yuan Feng smiled bitterly and said helplessly, Elder man, why are you talking nonsense? No matter who condenses a core inside, the surroundings are controlled by the celestial phenomenon. Our divine senses can't even get close, so how can we do anything else? But if Chao Wu condenses a core inside, I'm afraid our plan will change. Hu Yu was somewhat anxious. Yuan Feng frowned slightly and said unhappily, Elder Hu, if Chao Wu condenses a core, what do we have to be afraid of? Moreover, if it's Chao Wu condensing a core, would I need to make such a big fuss? Hu Yu's face reddened, and she didn't say anything else. Let's wait first. Yuan Feng said with a smile. It's just a core condensation. It won't be a big hindrance to our actions. Elder Yuan's words are reasonable. Although Man Yun said this, she still felt strange when she saw the fist-sized crystal fly into the altar. As for Xiao Hua, who was below the altar, he was safe and sound at this moment. Because the foundation establishment celestial phenomenon had confined the surroundings, those seemingly endless vengeful spirits were all confined in midair, unable to move. The Phoenix Dharma body was also suspended above Xiao Hua's head, not waiting for him to move. Xiao Hua's entire person was sitting cross-legged, taking the foundation establishment pill while converting the true qi absorbed into his body into true essence. Other people might take an hour or two to build their foundation, but Xiao Hua took an entire day and night to build his foundation. He took a total of 360 foundation building pills in the space, which was exactly the number of great circulations. Only then did the true energy in his body turn into true essence. Afterwards, the heaven and earth spiritual qi that entered his body was also refined by the Heart Sutra, turning into true essence that circulated within his meridian. Just as Xiao Hua stopped taking the foundation establishment pill and checked the condition of his body, he suddenly discovered that in the center of his lower dantian, there was a virtual point that was much lower than a grain of rice. It was slowly rotating. What is this? Could it be a gold core? Xiao Hua was shocked and thought to himself, but it's different from a gold core, it's a virtual point. Could it be, because there was something just now, that something appeared in my dantian because of ancestor Gen's core condensation? However, Xiao Hua was very clear that this was almost an impossible matter. The comprehension of core condensation was only the comprehension of breaking through the realm, it definitely would not increase the realm of a cultivator. But if that was not the case, then what was the reason? Forget it. Xiao Hua secretly shook his head. I'd better wait for the foundation establishment restriction to disappear, then quickly think of a way to escape from here. Sigh, this hateful restriction, even I can't break through it. Otherwise, I could borrow the power of the celestial phenomenon and escape. What was hateful was not only the foundation establishment restriction, there was also the celestial phenomenon that shocked Xiao Hua even more. It was gathering in the sky above the flame forest mountains that had already condensed into lava. In the sky above, the dark red clouds became denser and denser. Threads of heavenly lightning as thick as a thumb were faintly jumping about. When the thunderclouds pressed down on the fire lake, the power of the heavenly lightning had already enveloped the entire altar. This is bad. The first to sense it was Yuan Feng and the other elders. With a sweep of his divine sense, he was greatly shocked. He shouted loudly, "Disciples, quickly store your spirit beasts into your spirit storage pouches. You all also sit on the ground. You can only hold your breath and concentrate. You are not allowed to operate your heart techniques or release your divine sense. This is a spirit beast. The lightning tribulation of core condensation has nothing to do with us." When the disciples heard this, they hurriedly stored their spirit beasts. Following Yuan Feng's instructions, they distanced themselves from the altar and sat cross-legged on the ground. "Elder Yuan," Hu Yu transmitted her voice, "when did the lightning tribulation appear when a spirit beast is core condensation? From what I know, I'm afraid that the lightning tribulation will only appear when it's out of shape, right?" Yuan Feng smiled bitterly. He looked around and also transmitted his voice. "How would I know? I've only read some foreign books when I went to millions of Meng mountains. When ancient demonic beasts evolve, there will be a crimson lightning tribulation. Look at the crimson color of the dark clouds in the sky right now, it's somewhat similar to the crimson lightning tribulation. Ayo, could it be that the Chao Wu is out of shape?" Hu Yu said abruptly. However, as soon as she finished speaking, before Man Yun and the others could reply, she blushed. It was obvious that the Chao Wu's soul essence was suppressed under the formation. Without the support of its fleshly body, how could the Chao Wu be in shape? Yuan Feng quickly smoothed things over and said with a smile, "It's all my fault for not explaining clearly. Other than the Chao Wu's soul essence, there shouldn't be any other spirit beast under the altar. However, because the Chao Wu is a ferocious beast, the living beings it devours can't enter the 6 paths and can't be reincarnated. There should be many souls controlled by the Chao Wu's soul essence under the altar." "Souls?" As expected, Man Yun said in astonishment, "It said that such otherworldly items are necessary for fiendish cultivators. If we have any fiendish artifacts, it will be of great use. Even if we have fiendish artifacts, we can't refine them without fiendish cultivation techniques." Hu Yu said, "Moreover, we extracted the Chao Wu's soul essence. Those vengeful souls dissipated. We can treat it as a great merit. Ha ha ha, Elder Hu, our Dao sect only cultivates Dao techniques, not merit." Zhi Qipeng laughed. Just as he was laughing, he heard a series of muffled sounds of heavenly thunder. No, a strand of lightning thinner than a strand of hair fell down. It rushed straight through the fire lake, passed through the stone wall, and entered the altar. Xiao Hua, who was inside the black chi, had already completed his foundation establishment. The meridians in his body were incomparably stable. Water-like true essence flowed smoothly in his meridians. Xiao Hua only waved his hand and shot out the fireball technique with incomparable familiarity. A fireball of the same size as before, but the fire spiritual energy inside was condensed several times over, was born from his hand. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over the fireball. He couldn't help but sigh with emotion. He said to himself, "No wonder Master always emphasized foundation establishment. Foundation establishment's true essence really can't be compared to true chi. Although I already had a certain concept before, when I really built my foundation, I really had true essence. Only then did I understand the profoundness within. My magic power. I don't know how many times deeper than before." Hihi, Xiao Hua's face immediately revealed a sinister smile. "I took 360 foundation establishment pills to build my foundation. How can I compare to ordinary cultivators? Before building my foundation, I already had the ability to contend against ordinary late-stage foundation establishment cultivators. Then what about after building my foundation?" Thinking of this, Xiao Hua couldn't help but feel his blood boil. He raised his hand and was about to throw the fireball at those vengeful souls that were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws again. However, just as the fireball was thrown out, a heavenly might even more fierce than before emerged around Xiao Hua. Everything was unable to move. What's going on? Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed. The true essence that had just been born in his body seemed to have solidified. It seemed as if it couldn't flow. He really didn't understand. Since he had already built his foundation, was there still anything that couldn't be done? Rumble, rumble, rumble. A burst of thunder resounded in Xiao Hua's ears and even in his heart. A burst of indescribable fear emerged from Xiao Hua's heart. This is heavenly lightning. Soundless lightning. Xiao Hua had experienced the soundless lightning in the myriad Thunder Valley and immediately had some understanding. Could it be that foundation establishment also has a lightning tribulation? A vague imprint related to the lightning tribulation appeared in Xiao Hua's memory. It was a kind of fear, a kind of joy, and a kind of worship. Oh my, how do I know so much? Xiao Hua was once again puzzled. Chow Chow from before was also like that. How do I know? Could it be the fire ape's soul essence? Just as Xiao Hua's puzzlement emerged, he saw a heavenly might descend from the sky. A scarlet lightning net sprinkled down. Fear, excitement, pleasant surprise. All kinds of emotions actually emerged from Xiao Hua's phoenix Dharma body. On Xiao Hua's body that was firmly pressed down, those 13,200 tiny dots also had a kind of eager impulse. They wanted to break free from Xiao Hua's bones and rush into the phoenix Dharma body. Kachacha. ZZZT, ZZZT, ZZZT. A burst of complicated sounds rang out. The scarlet lightning net first fell on Xiao Hua's phoenix Dharma body. That phoenix Dharma body was instantly defeated and scattered into 13,200 tiny red dots. These tiny dots only had tiny blazing flames at this moment. The fine threads of lightning struck in. First, they pressed the spiral-shaped netherworld wind into the tiny dots. Then, the lightning also condensed into the tiny dots. Wind, fire, and lightning faintly flashed within the tiny dot. Just as the threads of lightning passed through the phoenix Dharma body, those 13,200 tiny dots flashed with a fiery light. Like a phoenix undergoing nirvana, a hurricane was born within the tiny dots. However, within this hurricane, there were more threads of fire and lightning. The phoenix Dharma body was gradually taking shape again. Ouch! Xiao Hua couldn't help but cry out miserably. He felt the same as the phoenix Dharma body. The phoenix Dharma body was defeated like this. It was as if his body was being torn apart. How could he endure it? However, his consciousness was so clear that he couldn't faint even if he wanted to. Every bit of pain was transmitted to his mind. This was an inhumane torture that Xiao Hua had never experienced before. Bone erosion and soul search. I'm afraid this is the only way, right? Xiao Hua felt that death was better than living. However, this was merely the beginning. Below the Phoenix Dharma body was the Buddha's Sariya. The scarlet lightning net also mercilessly struck the Sariya. Similarly, a ZZZT, ZZZT, ZZZT sound rang out. The lightning net covered the Buddha's Sariya. A kind of numbing and itchy feeling was immediately born. Just as this feeling was born, Xiao Hua felt as if he was reborn. However, immediately after, it transformed into an even more indescribable pain. Xiao Hua wished that he could grow 1,000,000 hands and scratch the Buddha's Sariya. This numbing itch really pierced his heart. -8. Chapter 1901. As this feeling deepened, the Buddha Sariya, which was about to disappear, gradually regained its golden light. The damaged parts were also repaired. Buddha Sariya can actually be cultivated like this. Xiao Hua's heart was filled with thousands of hands, but he couldn't reach out. He could only hatefully think about it. But in an instant, Xiao Hua thought of the Sariya he got from Misty Mountain. Fortunately, Xiao Hua only had his physical body and couldn't move. His mind still had some freedom. Without hesitation, he took out the 2 Sariyas from the space and threw them into the lightning net. Sure enough, the moment the Sariya touched the lightning net, it melted. However, the melted liquid didn't repair the Sariya like Xiao Hua thought. Instead, it gathered under the Sariya's feet, forming a thin layer. The final lightning net finally landed on Xiao Hua's body. At this time, Xiao Hua didn't feel any pain. Even if the lightning net tore his body apart, he was torn into 132 million small pieces. Xiao Hua's entire body became a bloody mess that people couldn't bear to look at. He could only watch coldly. This demonic beast's physical body tribulation was really too fierce. Xiao Hua thought that his body was already incomparably strong, but it was so easily torn apart. Fortunately, just as his flesh was about to fly, the scarlet red bones with a tinge of orange emitted a gentle light. The bones tightly absorbed the 132 million small dots. Even the scattered blood didn't lose a single drop. And these small dots were like greedy babies, swallowing the lightning threads scattered in his body one by one. As the lightning threads were swallowed, the light on the bones gave birth to a healing power. His body was repaired bit by bit, and the blood was once again drawn into his blood vessels. It was a faint dragon's roar. Just when Xiao Hua thought that the lightning tribulation was over, his meridians moved again. The dragon transformation art madly circulated again. The lightning net passed through his body and finally landed on Xiao Hua's dragon veins. Piercing pain, sore and itchy, his meridians were torn apart again. Xiao Hua was speechless. I'm only at Foundation establishment, another hour passed, but there was no more movement within the formation. Woof! A light sound broke the tranquility of the formation. Less than 30 meters to the left of Xiao Hua, a crimson-black Chow's soul essence appeared. This soul essence wasn't large, only a foot long, and there were several strands of lightning lingering around it. Obviously, it was affected by Xiao Hua's inexplicable lightning tribulation. Chow Ni soul essence. Xiao Hua immediately understood that the lightning tribulation was coming to an end. Xiao Hua's body was being repaired and he couldn't move for the time being. However, he could see with his naked eye. What's suppressed under this array formation is the Chao Li's soul essence. Those vengeful souls are also being driven by the Chao Li's soul essence. Listening to the sound of the Chao Teng's soul essence, it seems that the damage is not light. I think I have a chance. Immediately, Xiao Hua looked around and looked at the countless vengeful souls from before. Most of them had already been destroyed by the lightning tribulation. The remaining ones were mostly fish that slipped through the net or people with tyrannical cultivation when they were alive. Xiao Hua was pleasantly surprised. However, he couldn't move at the moment and couldn't use his divine ability to kill the Chao Li's soul essence. Just as Xiao Hua was feeling disappointed, 5 lumps of light that weren't brilliant appeared near the barking. As soon as the 5 lumps of light appeared, they immediately surrounded the Chao Li's soul essence. The 5 colored lumps of light constantly attacked the Chao Li's soul essence. With every attack, the Chao Li's soul essence would tremble, seeming to be heavily injured. 5 spirits. Xiao Hua was dumbstruck again. He moaned, azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, black tortoise, and Chileen. Heavens, this array formation, where the hell is it? Ayo, that's not right. That doesn't seem to be a Chileen. Xiao Hua observed for a moment and immediately realized that something was wrong. The lumps of the 5 spirits were all in the shape of the 5 spirits. Only the Chileen's soul essence couldn't help but be fat. It was actually somewhat similar to the dust-repelling beast. Woof tilde at this moment, the Chao Li moved. The lightning threads around its body already disappeared without a trace. At the same time that the vengeful souls flew around it, its body also emitted a black and red lumps of light to attack the 5 spirit. Damn it, hurry up and move. Xiao Hua used all his strength to break free from the shackles. Unfortunately, this was the shackles of the lightning tribulation, the might of heaven and earth. How could he move? And the vengeful souls that were forced back by the lightning tribulation just now were flying towards Xiao Hua's Buddha Sarira. Fortunately, after being baptized by the lightning tribulation, the golden light of the Buddha Sarira seemed to be even more dignified. Previously, if the vengeful souls had to eat 10 mouthfuls to transcend, now they only needed 1 mouthful to repent. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Xiao Hua was finally able to move. He opened his mouth without any hesitation, and the dream execution flew out, transforming into 8 sword lights that rushed towards the Chao Li's soul essence. At the same time, the Phoenix Dharma body also let out a cry and flapped its wings, grabbing at the soul essence with its sharp claws. Naturally, the first layer of Xiao Hua's Buddha Sarira was also used. After going through the lightning tribulation, the word Lin became even more powerful. It was 3 times bigger than before, and one word could transcend 3 times the number of vengeful souls. At this moment, the 5 spirits had been knocked around by the Chao Li, and their lumps had become much weaker. Especially the Chileen. Not only had its lumps become weaker, its speed had also become much slower. The Chao Li was also cunning. When it saw the Chileen was weak, it focused on attacking it. The 5 spirits formed the 5 Skandhas formation of spirit awakening. If the Chileen was broken, the formation would be broken, and the Chao Li would naturally be able to escape. It had to be said that spirit husbandry sect's method was like asking a tiger for its skin. If they were slightly careless. There was no need to say careless. They had basically gotten themselves caught in a trap of their own making. Xiao Hua's 8 sword lights had joined in at the right time. The power of karma was what the Chao Li feared, and it could also injure the Chao Li. Therefore, wherever the sword lights reached, the Chao Li had no choice but to deal with them. Of course, it was only to deal with them. Xiao Hua's cultivation was far too inferior to the Chao Li's. Even though he had just entered foundation establishment and his strength had increased greatly, it was still not enough to deal with the Chao Li. The Phoenix Dharma body flew over, and its seemingly huge body and seemingly sharp phoenix claws were produced with a bark from the Chao Li's soul essence. The Phoenix Dharma body hurriedly spread its wings to resist the binding force. How could the claws reach down? Seeing this, Xiao Hua slapped his forehead, and the cloud-suppressing seal flew out. With a buzzing sound, it smashed towards the Chao Li's soul essence. However, the truth was not out of Xiao Hua's expectations. The cloud of the cloud-suppressing seal smashed towards the Chao Li. Although the Chao Li was apprehensive of the power of karma, he was not afraid. He dodged slightly and dodged it. The cloud-suppressing seal was unable to succeed. Since the cloud-suppressing seal was ineffective, Xiao Hua did not waste his efforts. He used all sorts of magic treasures like the Yi-Yang fan and the Fireball talisman. Unfortunately, none of them were effective. Instead, they angered the Chao Li, and waves of binding force enveloped Xiao Hua. Forget it. Xiao Hua saw that all his methods were useless and could only use the Phoenix Dharma body. -8. Chapter 1902. Not to mention that Xiao Hua saw that all kinds of methods were useless, He could only use the Phoenix Dharma body and do his best to circulate the Buddhist Dharma cultivation method to save the souls of the dead and reduce the burden of the 5 spirit. Among the 5 spirits, the azure dragon let out a dragon roar, shaking the black fog of the dead souls away a little. Then, the azure dragon's light ball suddenly elongated, and the brilliance suddenly converged. Like the azure dragon swinging its tail, it began to rotate in the air, and a strange fluctuation was born. At the same time, the white tiger, the vermilion bird, and the black tortoise also roared as if they had received an order. The 4 light balls immediately began to rotate, and 3 different kinds of fluctuations were born. Then, the fat Chileen let out a weak cry, and then slowly rotated again. The brilliance of the light ball was also intermittent, and the fluctuations it produced were also intermittent. The 5 kinds of fluctuations intertwined, giving birth to a new kind of fluctuation. It was like a net that covered the Chao Ni from top to bottom. Although the Chao Ni was rarely afraid, it was suppressed by the 5 spirits. No matter how hard it tried, it was unable to escape. Under the cover of this fluctuation, the Chao Ni's soul essence became smaller and smaller. In this way, the entanglement lasted for the time it took to brew a cup of tea. The Chao Ni opened its mouth slightly, and with a woof, a black gas rushed towards the Chileen's light ball. Hua, it was as if boiling water was poured on top of ice and snow. The light ball that the Chao Ni had been attacking for a long time suddenly flickered. The Chileen in the light ball clearly could not hold on. Not good. Xiao Hua cursed in his heart. Seeing the other 4 spirits' brilliance dim at the same time as the Chileen's brilliance, the net-like fluctuation also began to tremble. He knew that the 5 spirits would not be able to hold on for long. When Xiao Hua was anxious, he thought of the dust-repelling beast in his space that he did not know what to do. Let's give it a try, Xiao Hua thought, and with a wave of his hand, the huge dust-repelling beast was taken out by Xiao Hua. The originally ordinary dust-repelling beast's corpse, once it entered the array, the sharp horn on its forehead immediately emitted a gentle brilliance. This brilliance was incomparably pure, and a kind of holy power immediately spread out. When Chao Xiu's soul essence was illuminated by the brilliance, it was extremely alarmed. It wanted to hide in the darkness, but the 5 spirits had already formed an array and suppressed it. There was a limit to its ability to hide. When Xiao Hua saw this, he was overjoyed. He resisted the shackles of the Chao Ti and flew towards the place where the 5 spirits were. When he got close, the Chileen let out a long cry like a horse and rushed into the body of the Chao Ti beast with incomparable speed. When the Chileen light came out again, it was already several times stronger than before. The brilliance was even more brilliant. Moreover, the image of the Chileen inside was really like a Chileen. It was no longer as fat as before. This is bad. Xiao Hua didn't have time to cheer. In his field of vision, he saw that Chao's soul essence actually took advantage of the fact that the 5 spirits' coordination was a bit uncoordinated to break free and fly down. Ayo, could it be that there's something else beneath me? Xiao Hua's divine sense swept out. Now that Xiao Hua had reached the Foundation establishment realm, his divine sense had greatly improved. Although he was restricted by the array formation, he could still see the bottom. The place where Chao Ti had escaped to was a flaw in the array formation. There was still a faint lightning glow at this flaw. It had actually been broken by the lightning tribulation just now. Chao Ti wants to escape. Xiao Hua was slightly shocked, but then a trace of joy appeared in his heart. If Chao Ti's soul essence had escaped, wouldn't he be able to escape as well? Unfortunately, just as Xiao Hua was scheming in his heart, hundreds and thousands of suction forces suddenly appeared above his head and directly covered Chao Ti's soul essence. The disciples of Spirit Husbandry sect were already waiting impatiently outside the altar. Under the command of Elder Yuan Feng, they all released the spirit-devouring cultivation technique. Elder Yuan Feng was indeed a genius. This spirit-devouring cultivation technique was the nemesis of all soul essences. Even if Chao Ti was a ferocious beast and its soul essence was extremely ferocious, the thousands of spirit-devouring cultivation technique still easily absorbed Chao Ti's soul essence. Woof tilde Chao Ti barked in panic. If it was under normal circumstances, it might not necessarily have no means to escape. However, under Xiao Hua's lightning tribulation, It was extremely weak and couldn't escape at all. It stopped at the floor in the array formation and the 5 spirits surrounded it. Chao Ti then charged towards the brilliance of the 5 spirits a few times. Although it was able to gain some benefits every time, the suction force of the thousands of spirit-devouring cultivation technique constantly tore Chao Ti's soul essence away. Woof woof tilde Chao Ti barked again. The few souls left in the array formation gathered towards Chao Ti, wanting to help Chao Ti resist the spirit-devouring cultivation technique. Xiao Hua laughed loudly. "You dog-head, you still want to be lucky at this moment." After saying that, the Buddha Surya stood up and chanted mantras as it flew in front of Chao Ti, blocking the souls from gathering together. It was unknown how many souls had passed through the Buddha Surya. The golden color that had been baptized by the lightning tribulation was tattered and almost dimmed. Luckily, the 2 Sariras that Xiao Hua had sent into the Buddha Surya had turned into a thin layer of golden liquid that stopped at the feet of the Buddha Surya. Every time the Buddha Surya's golden body was exhausted, it would rush towards the Buddha Surya along with Xiao Hua's exquisite scripture, repairing the golden body. There was still some golden liquid under the Buddha Surya. From the looks of it, it should be able to last until Chao Ti was torn apart and absorbed by the spirit-devouring cultivation technique. At this moment, another 4 even more ferocious spirit-devouring cultivation technique entered the array formation. It was executed by Yuan Feng and the other elders. These 4 were even more powerful than the previous ones. Once they absorbed Chao Ti's soul essence, in less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Chao Ti's soul essence had shrunk by more than half. Chao Ti was also unlucky. The 5 spirits were originally the methods of spirit husbandry sect, but if it wasn't for Xiao Hua's Buddha Surya and the lightning tribulation, spirit husbandry sect wouldn't have been able to defend against the ferocious Chao Ti. Just Xiao Hua's final lightning tribulation had destroyed 70% of Chao Ti's soul essence. Otherwise, the 5 spirits wouldn't have been unable to find Chao Ti's soul essence until the very end. Of course, if it wasn't for the 5 spirits of spirit husbandry sect and the spirit-devouring cultivation technique, Xiao Hua probably wouldn't have been a match for Chao Ti with 30% of its strength. In the end, Xiao Hua would only have been a dead spirit of Chao Ti's soul essence. However, spirit husbandry sect on the surface and Xiao Hua in the dark directly led to the end of Chao Ti's soul essence. Seeing the 4 powerful suction forces, Chao Ti's soul essence suddenly shrunk, causing more than half of the spirit-devouring cultivation technique to fail. Furthermore, when Chao Ti's soul essence expanded once again, it continued to expand. With a loud bang, not only did it break free from the restraint of the 5 spirits, it also broke free from the suction force. Xiao Hua wasn't the only one who was shocked. All the disciples of spirit husbandry sect outside the sacrificial altar were also surprised. Quick, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Yuan Feng suddenly came to a realization. These soul essences don't have Chao Ti's imprint, both spirit beasts and I can use them. As he said that, he sat down cross-legged and used the spirit-devouring cultivation technique to refine these soul essences. Man Yun and the other elders and disciples were all surprised. This was definitely an unexpected surprise. Therefore, everyone sat down cross-legged and worked hard, no longer mentioning the Chao Ti's soul essence in the sacrificial altar. Chao Ti wants to escape. This was the first reaction of Xiao Hua, who was inside the sacrificial altar. He hurriedly used his spiritual sense to scan for the flaws in the formation. However, what shocked Xiao Hua was that the 5 spirits had already blocked the flaws and Chao Ti's soul essence wasn't there at all. Xiao Hua was rather surprised. Where did the dog head go? Just as this thought appeared, a trace of vigilance came from the phoenix spell body. Xiao Hua was shocked and hurriedly used his spiritual sense to scan the sky. He saw an extremely dim Chao Ti's soul essence flying towards him. Damn it, your opponent is the 5 spirits, not me. Xiao Hua was shocked and hurriedly used the bright thunder escape to dodge. However, very naturally, Chao Ti's power of confinement appeared from all sides and suppressed Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua tried his best to urge the phoenix spell body. The spell body flapped its wings and blocked left and right, wanting to block Chao Ti's soul essence. At the same time, The 5 spirits also discovered the abnormality here and rushed over from the floors. Woof tilde Chow Ti barked. It seemed to have dodged the phoenix spell body's obstruction and was about to rush into Xiao Hua's body. However, just as the 5 spirits were about to surround it, it suddenly retreated and quickly flew towards the floors in the formation. Damn it, this dog head actually knows how to feint. Xiao Hua's little heart trembled in fear. Just as he was about to rejoice, a strange situation appeared again. That Chilean light seemed to have expected Chow Ti's actions. It actually took a step forward and flew in front of Chow Ti. The horse neighed and crashed into Chow Ti, blocking Chow Ti's escape route. Chow Ti's soul essence weakened again and had no choice but to fly towards Xiao Hua, dust-warding beast. You fat pig. Xiao Hua was furious. If I had known, I wouldn't have taken you out. The 5 spirits actually surrounded Chow Ti and Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua was flustered. Just now, all his magic treasures were useless. Now that Chow Ti was close to him, what should he do? Spiritual fire tilde seeing Chow Ti close in and Xiao Hua release the dream executioner, Xiao Hua thought of the scarlet spiritual fire ignited by the fire origin. Pu. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent. He opened his mouth and spat out a scarlet spiritual fire. That spiritual fire was absolutely bewitching. As soon as it flew out of his body, it immediately scattered a faint light throughout the entire space. Not only was Chow Ti afraid, even the 5 spirits stopped in their respective positions and didn't dare to go forward. Damn it, this spiritual fire is actually so powerful. Xiao Hua was overjoyed. His hand began to form a shaky hand seal. He pointed his finger, wanting to activate the spirit fire. But just as Xiao Hua was about to activate his magic power, the true essence in his body began to flow rapidly. His magic power began to flow uncontrollably into the hand seal. Ah! This was the first time Xiao Hua used some ancient fire control divine art. He didn't expect it to consume so much magic power. Only when half of the magic power in his body was used did the hand seal in his hand take shape. Go! Xiao Hua smiled bitterly and formed the hand seal. A thin line of fire flew out from the spiritual fire and drew a beautiful arc in the air, directly piercing Chow Ti's soul essence. Woof tilde tilde with a miserable cry, Chow Ti's soul essence was ignited. His entire body tumbled in the air. When the bewitching red light was extinguished, Chow Ti's soul essence was only left with a thumb-sized shadow. Gar tilde at this time, the phoenix body let out a long cry and stretched out its beak. It opened its mouth and sucked in Chow Ti's soul essence. Roar! One of the 5 spirits, the azure dragon, also let out a dragon cry. It seemed to be dissatisfied with the actions of the phoenix body. Roar! For some unknown reason, Xiao Hua's meridians also moved. Xiao Hua involuntarily opened his mouth and let out a long cry. Moreover, the spiritual fire in his hand also suddenly moved. At this time, the azure dragon was speechless. It watched as the phoenix body sucked Chow Ti's soul essence into its body. Just like before, when it absorbed the fire ape's soul essence, Chow Ti's soul essence also flew into a small dot and stopped moving. Then, a huge amount of memories rushed into Xiao Hua's mind. It's like this again. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. Following the pain in his head, he once again sealed the majority of his memories. Seeing Chow Ti's soul essence disappear, the 5 spirits circled around Xiao Hua for a while. Then, they flew above the spell formation and stood in different positions, no longer moving. -8. Chapter 1903. Xiao Hua withdrew the spiritual fire and flew to the weak point of the formation. He first looked around, but did not rush to escape. Instead, he activated the Buddha Sarira and continued to transcend the remaining dead souls. As Xiao Hua transcended the dead souls, the Buddha fire in the Buddha heart within the Buddha Sarira had already taken shape. Until several hours later, all the dead souls had been transcended. There was not a trace of black energy left in the entire formation. Another few hundred strands of spirit-devouring cultivation technique rushed into the formation. The 5 spirits on the formation also began to move. Xiao Hua knew that the formation was about to be opened. Damn it, even though my cultivation is at foundation establishment right now, it can't compare to Xiong Minute. This bastard, with such a ruthless method, he must have already succeeded. If I rush out now, I will definitely fall into his hands. Why don't I escape first and see if there is a chance later? Thinking of this, Xiao Hua did not hesitate and immediately rushed out of the formation's floor. Outside was still the bottom of the fire lake, but because Xiao Hua had built his foundation, he had absorbed all of the fire-type spiritual energy. Now, it had turned into lava, and Xiao Hua used the earth escape technique to easily escape from it. You are ready. On the altar, Elder Yuan Feng instructed, the Chao Wu's soul essence is definitely not this little. There must be some remaining soul essence hidden in this formation. Once you see any soul essence, immediately use the spirit-devouring cultivation technique. Immediately after, Yuan Feng used the technique. The 5-spirit flag fluttered in the wind, and a 5-colored brilliance shot out and rushed into the altar. Immediately after, the surface of the altar that was surging with black mist just now once again turned into 5 sparkling and translucent spirit. Ayo, this Chilean seems to be wrong. Elder Yuan Feng, who was in charge of the array formation, was very sensitive. Then, without thinking, he waved the 5 spirit flags. The 5 spirits actually flew up from the altar and rushed into the 5 spirit flags, revealing that there was probably a space of several miles under the altar. However, when the formation opened, the space was also revealed, but the space was completely empty. It was as clean as a thief leaving a building. This. Yuan Feng and the other 3 elders scanned with their divine senses. How could they not know? They could not help but be dumbfounded. Elder Yuan, there seems to be a flaw in the formation. Man Yun said in a very experienced manner. Yuan Feng scanned with his divine sense and gritted his teeth. No wonder, even though we've gained a lot of benefits, but we haven't gotten most of the spirit beast's soul essences yet. It turns out that this bastard escaped from the array's floor. It must have the help of other spirit beast's soul essences. Let's chase after it quickly. After he finished speaking, he instructed a portion of the disciples to clean up the mess. A portion of the disciples, under the lead of the other elders, went ahead and chased after Xiao Hua. Then, he put away the 5 spirit flags and sealed the array formation as before. After that, he brought the other disciples and chased after Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua naturally wouldn't go far. After the spirit husbandry sect disciples left to clean up the mess, the underground caves were empty. Xiao Hua suddenly appeared in one of the caves. He looked down at the lifelike sacrificial altar and thought to himself, spirit husbandry sect? It was the spirit husbandry sect. How was this possible? It's normal for them to covet the soul essence of the Chao Ao, but why was I sent here by Xiong Minute? Could it be the formation? Xiao Hua had eavesdropped on the conversation of the spirit husbandry sect disciples who were cleaning up the mess. He already knew most of the truth. However, he didn't expect that he would mess up the spirit husbandry sect's plan. Furthermore, he could faintly feel that the reason he was sent here was related to the formation. After all, Xiong Min's plan and the spirit husbandry sect's plan were different. If Xiong Minute had joined forces with the spirit husbandry sect, she wouldn't have joined forces with Jin Yi. Since that's the case, Xue and eldest senior brother definitely aren't here. Xiao Hua frowned. Then they should be the chasing thunder beast, right? But where is the chasing thunder beast? Xiao Hua waved his hand and was about to take out the sun-moon corona. However, it was a pity that the sun-moon corona was no longer in his space. How could he take it out? Ayo, I'm afraid I've fallen into the 5-elemental soul-capturing formation. Xiao Hua was a little regretful. However, a hint of joy appeared in his eyes soon after. He sat cross-legged in the mountain cave and released his phoenix celestial body and divine sense. After a while, Xiao Hua opened his eyes and flew out of the cave. He flew into midair and looked at the depths of Flame Forest Swamp. It was a completely different direction from where Spirit Husbandry Sect was chasing. He frowned and said, "The Sun-Moon Corona was refined by me and the Fire Ape Spirit Essence is also in the Phoenix spell body. However, why can't I sense the exact location of the Sun-Moon Corona? Why can I only sense it vaguely?" If it was in someone else's storage bag, I wouldn't even be able to sense it vaguely. It must be in Shue's hands. Forget it. No matter what, how can I not care about Shue's safety? Xiao Hua chuckled and suddenly flew into the air. The bright thunder escape was executed very easily. After Xiao Hua entered the Foundation establishment realm, how could his divine ability be predicted using common sense? The true essence in Xiao Hua's body flowed smoothly like mercury, and a comfortable feeling that he had never experienced before was born in his meridians. Abundant magic power surged in his body, and Xiao Hua had an impulse. He felt that even if there was a golden core cultivator in front of him, he could still fight for him. However, after thinking deeper, Xiao Hua felt a little discouraged. Currently, all of his techniques were chi refinement spells. Not to mention golden core, he didn't even have many foundation establishment techniques. How could he fight with a golden core cultivator? At this moment, a golden core cultivator's divine sense swept over, and Xiao Hua had no choice but to stop and wait respectfully in the air. After a while, an unfamiliar cultivator swaggered over and looked at Xiao Hua and said coldly, "Which sect are you from? You just entered the Foundation establishment realm and you dare to come to the depths of the Flame Forest Swamp? Do you not want to live anymore? Senior, please no. I am a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect and followed Martial Uncle Zhenyi here. However, because we were separated by accident, I am here to find Martial Uncle Zhenyi. May I know if Senior is my martial uncle?" Xiao Hua controlled his temper and asked respectfully. "Imperial Thunder sect. Zhenyi." The Golden Core cultivator was clearly happy when he heard Zhenyi's name. He said with a smile, "I was wondering why Martial Nephew's flying speed was different from others. So you are a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. Does Martial Nephew know the lightning escape technique?" "Ah!" Xiao Hua saw the Golden Core cultivator's attitude and suddenly became a Martial Nephew. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. He bowed and said, "Junior's lightning escape technique is only at the entry level. It can't be said that I know it. It's already not bad." The Golden Core cultivator said with a smile, "May I know if fellow Daoist Zhenyi's lightning escape technique has reached mastery?" Xiao Hua really couldn't continue chattering with this cultivator. He said with a smile, "Junior doesn't know about Martial Uncle Zhenyi, but I'm afraid he hasn't reached mastery either." The Golden Core cultivator nodded and said, "I am Xie from the Immortal Ascension sect. I have long heard of the Imperial Thunder sect's lightning escape technique. I have also long heard of fellow Daoist Zhenyi's reputation, eh?" Xiao Hua was happy when he heard this. He said with a smile, "My martial uncle is probably in front. If Senior Xie has time, there is no harm in letting Junior lead the way. You will definitely be able to see my martial uncle." -8. Chapter 1904. Alas, what a pity. Xie Zhiqian looked back at the Flame Forest Swamp and shook his head. "I just found one thing, I need to find another one. I'm afraid I can't go." Xiao Hua was very disappointed and smiled apologetically. "In that case, I won't waste Senior Xie's time, please. Haha, don't worry." Xie Zhiqian clapped his hand and took out a jade slip. He immersed his divine sense in it and wrote something on it. He handed it to Xiao Hua and said, "This is for fellow Daoist Zhen. Please give it to him on my behalf. I have something to discuss with fellow Daoist Zhen, so please pass it to him." "No problem." Xiao Hua accepted it with a smile. Xie Zhiqian took out another medicinal pill and said with a smile, "There is a saying in the mortal world that an emperor does not lack hungry soldiers. Martial Nephew Minghua, please accept this pill as a token of my appreciation." Ayo. Seeing that Xie Zhiqian was so amiable and approachable, truly worthy of the Qian in his name, Xiao Hua was somewhat flattered. He hurriedly took it and said with a smile, "I don't dare to disobey an elder's words, and I don't dare to refuse an elder's gift. Senior Xie, please rest assured, this junior will definitely take care of this matter. I will wait for fellow Daoist Zhen's message." Xie Zhiqian cupped his hands and flew away with a smile. After Xie Zhiqian left, Xiao Hua looked at his back and thoughtfully said, "Meng Country's Immortal Ascension sect? Why did a Meng country cultivator come to my country of she's flame forest swamp? Then he looked at the jade slip in his hand and put it in his storage bag. He said self-deprecatingly, "They are looking for Marshal Uncle Genyi, not me. Why do I think so much?" After flying for half a day, the number of cultivators they met became less and less. The fire lake under their feet gradually became bigger and bigger. The sun-moon corona also began to feel erratic. However, Xiao Hua's heart relaxed a lot. Since the sun-moon corona was moving, it meant that Shui was fine. Wang tilde just as Xiao Hua was flying past the edge of a fire lake, a large group of fire bats suddenly flew out from their habitat at the edge of the lake and rushed towards Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua could practically see the sharp fangs in the mouth of the closest fire bat. Damn it! Xiao Hua cursed angrily. He opened his mouth and the Dream Executioner flying sword flew out. 8 sword lights flew into the group of fire bats. Then, he slapped his hand and the cloud-suppressing seal flew out of the space, sprinkling a bronze brilliance to protect himself. However, the Dream Executioner was unstoppable. Every time it flashed, it would kill a few fire bats. The fire bats were immediately thrown into chaos. Xiao Hua also didn't want to stay for too long. With a wave of his hand, dozens of fireball talismans smashed into the air, causing the fire bats to become dizzy and disoriented. Then, he increased his speed and flew over the fire lake. By the time the fire bats regrouped and looked for Xiao Hua again, where would there be any trace of him? It should be here. Xiao Hua didn't stop in the slightest. He waited until he arrived at a place densely packed with stone spikes before he stopped in midair. However, he saw that there was no fire lake in this area of several hundred li. There were only stone spikes that pierced into the air. These stone spikes were of different sizes, and they were all reddish-brown in color. There wasn't the slightest bit of vegetation on them. Xiao Hua paused for a moment. He only heard the sound of wind blowing through the spikes. There wasn't any other movement. He carefully released his divine sense again. There wasn't any special place within a few dozen li. Not only were there no cultivators, even the firebats and firebats were nowhere to be seen, not to mention the fire apes and lightning beast. Strange. Xiao Hua used ordinary flying techniques and slowly cruised in the air. He constantly released his divine sense to find the whereabouts of the sun-moon corona. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, suddenly, in a very short period of time, the aura of the sun-moon corona appeared about 10 li to the west of Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua immediately activated the bright thunder escape. The distance of 10 li was covered in an instant. It's here. Xiao Hua's figure descended, and right under a mountain range of stone spikes, he found a cave that was several zhong in size hidden under that craggy boulder. This cave was very well hidden. If it wasn't for the aura of the sun-moon corona, Xiao Hua definitely wouldn't have been able to find it. Xiao Hua landed beside the cave and released his divine sense. He actually found that there were some incomplete restrictions inside the cave. It was precisely these restrictions that were blocking the aura of the sun-moon corona. This is not good. Xiao Hua thought for a moment. He waved his hand and took out the invisibility talisman. Under the urging of his magic power, it turned into a shining talisman. Xiao Hua patted his hand and placed it on his body. Xiao Hua's figure gradually disappeared. Although the restrictions of the cave had blocked the aura of the sun-moon corona, they couldn't stop Xiao Hua from entering. Xiao Hua easily entered the cave. However, using the invisibility talisman didn't allow him to use his magic power. Xiao Hua could only walk along the uneven path inside the cave. However, after entering a few dozen zhong, Xiao Hua had no choice but to use his magic power. Because the outside of the cave looked normal, there was no fire lake. However, the inside of the cave was huge. The lava was like an underground river, flowing everywhere. There were many places where there were no paths at all. One could only rely on magic power to fly through. Xiao Hua became even more worried when he saw that the further they went, the deeper the cave became. Moreover, the surrounding environment also became increasingly worse. He clearly understood Shui's cultivation. In this kind of scorching hot place where lava constantly flew out, Shui only had the strength to protect herself. If the fire ape were to attack her, she would not be able to withstand it. I have to hurry, Xiao Hua thought. He quickly increased his flying speed and flew towards the aura of the sun-moon corona. However, after flying for a cup of tea's time, an arrogant, cold, and tyrannical divine sense suddenly swept out from the depths of the cave. It swept past Xiao Hua's body and rushed out of the cave. Because it sensed Xiao Hua's existence, the divine sense immediately swept back, trying to lock onto Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua was shocked. Without hesitation, he stopped using his magic power. His whole body fell into the lava like a rock. He used the fire-earth escape technique to hide his body. However, just as Xiao Hua fell into the lava, a swarm of fire rats swam over. They disgustingly tore at the light protecting Xiao Hua's body. Damn it! Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Seeing that the divine sense didn't find anything in the air, it immediately swept towards the lava. Moreover, the sharp teeth of the fire rats were extremely fierce. In a short moment, they swallowed a lot of Xiao Hua's escape technique's light. Xiao Hua was helpless. His body flew towards the wall next to the lava. When Xiao Hua disappeared into the wall, the fire rats resentfully swam to different parts of the lava. Xiao Hua appeared from the other side of the wall. He immediately activated the invisibility talisman and then quietly released his Buddhist sense. Sure enough, the divine sense couldn't find anything in the air. It dived into the lava again and carefully searched around. It even swept past the place where Xiao Hua was. Fortunately, the invisibility talisman could avoid the detection of divine sense. That Buddhist sense was also mysterious. Divine sense couldn't detect it. After a cup of tea's time, the divine sense withdrew into the depths of the cave. Previously, Xiao Hua didn't dare to move. He waited for a moment before he activated his magic power and continued to fly in the direction where the divine sense withdrew. Xiao Hua's Buddhist sense also followed him into the depths of the cave. Soon, Xiao Hua's Buddhist awareness tracked down the entrance of an immortal's cave. Although the immortal's cave was not closed, there was obviously a restriction that prevented Buddhist awareness from entering. Only when Xiao Hua was about 10 feet away from the immortal's cave did he stop. He activated the invisibility talisman and approached the entrance of the immortal's cave step by step. Just as Xiao Hua approached the cave mansion, the same divine sense swept out from the cave mansion. It swept past Xiao Hua's body twice before sweeping into the distance. Xiao Hua didn't dare to move. He stood there obediently and waited for the divine sense to return. Then, he walked step by step towards the entrance of the cave mansion. The door of the cave mansion was open. Xiao Hua walked in without asking. However, when he saw the situation inside the cave mansion, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Then, his hair stood on end. What entered Xiao Hua's eyes was a huge cave mansion. This cave mansion was filled with corpses and bones. Not only was the ground covered in white beast bones, but the entire cave mansion was also filled with a hot aura and an incomparably fishy odor. Before Xiao Hua had time to clearly see the situation inside the cave mansion, he heard a thunderous beast roar coming from the corner of the cave mansion. It was the roar of the thunder beast that Xiao Hua had heard before. This roar attracted Xiao Hua's gaze. When Xiao Hua saw the situation in the corner, he couldn't help but be even more furious. He saw two huge thunder beasts standing in the corner. One of them was the one that Xiao Hua had seen before. Its body was covered in blood and it was missing a wing. The other was shorter than the thunder beast by a head, but its body was much fatter. Its two large breasts were exposed and swaying. Looking to the left of the two thunder beasts, Xiao Hua saw a few familiar people. Zhen Yi, Feng Shuqing, Liu Mingsheng, Jiang Zhucheng, and a female cultivator's corpse were lying on the ground. Zhen Yi and the other 3 gold core cultivators' abdomens had been dug open and their flesh was badly mangled. Their skulls were also clawed open, revealing fist-sized black holes. Clearly, their brains had been eaten by the 2 thunder beasts. At this time, the 2 thunder beasts were hysterically roaring at the corner of the cave mansion. Through their flapping wings, Xiao Hua saw that Xue's face was deathly pale. She spread her arms like an old hen protecting her chicks. Behind him, Xiong Yang and Yang Qinglian's mouths were stained with blood. Their daoist robes were also stained with blood. Their eyes were filled with panic. Roar. The female thunder beast suddenly spread its wings and stretched out its pitch-black claws, wanting to grab Shueishue's skull. Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed. Without hesitation, he spat out the execution dream from his mouth. It instantly flew out and split into 8 sword lights, stabbing towards the thunder beast. As for the male thunder beast, it was also strange. It actually waved its hand, wanting to block the female thunder beast's claws. But at this time, the 2 thunder beasts simultaneously turned towards Xiao Hua. Seeing Xiao Hua's flying sword attack, the 2 thunder beasts no longer cared about Shueishue and the others. They simultaneously turned around and opened their mouths. One beast wanted to block Xiao Hua's flying sword with a lightning net in its mouth, while the other beast spat out a lightning net that flickered with blue brilliance towards Xiao Hua's head. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for it. -8. Chapter 1905. Xiao darling, be careful. Shueishue's eyes flashed with surprise, and then she cried out, quickly run away. Xiao Hua's heart warmed. He clapped his hand, and the cloud-suppressing seal flew out. It flashed with a bronze light and flew towards the lightning net. Peng! ZZZT. With a burst of noise, the cloud-suppressing seal flashed out several clouds and randomly smashed onto the lightning net. The lightning net flashed violently, and effortlessly annihilated the clouds. Xiao Hua pointed his finger, and once again urged his magic power. The cloud-suppressing seal suddenly expanded, and pressed down on the lightning net. Under the thunder beast's control, the thunder net abruptly wrapped around the entire suppressing cloud seal. Flickering threads of lightning surrounded the suppressing cloud seal. The faint brilliance surrounding the suppressing cloud seal was extremely powerful. This innate divine ability was not something an ordinary magic treasure could compare to. At the same time Xiao Hua took out the cloud-suppressing seal, he spat out a mantra. His sword art did not delay at all. 3 sword lights flashed and rushed into the other lightning net. The other 5 turned in the air, dodged the lightning net, and flew towards the male lightning beast. Xiao Hua had advanced to the foundation realm, and his divine sense had increased greatly. It could actually cover an area of several dozen li, which was several times larger than a normal foundation realm cultivator's 10 li. Of course, it was still a bit smaller than the maximum range of 100 li for a golden core realm cultivator. However, this divine sense was barely enough to control 2 magic treasures. It was much better than before when he could only control 1. The male lightning beast saw the dream executioner flying over, and was slightly shocked. The negative karma on the dream executioner was very sensitive to spiritual beasts, and it was the most frightening thing. The male lightning beast did not dare to be careless. It flapped its wings, and its body quickly turned around, wanting to dodge. Unfortunately, one of its wings was already damaged, and the other flapped, it could not fly. Instead, it staggered, and its body was unstable. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. 5 sharp sword lights pierced through the air, and the dream executioner stabbed in front of the male lightning beast. The male lightning beast had no choice but to use its 2 sharp claws to grab. The lightning between the claws was still flashing, but it was obvious that the lightning was much weaker than before. There was no suspense. The 2 sword lights were instantly struck by the male lightning beast's claws. After a few flashes, they disappeared. Xiao Hua's divine sense also felt like it was struck by lightning. It was abnormally painful. Xiao Hua clenched his teeth. He didn't expect the thunder beast's attack to be this powerful. He urged his sword art again, and the 3 sword lights that were already close to the male thunder beast accelerated again, stabbing towards the male thunder beast's armpit and chest. With a piercing sound, the 3 sword lights pierced into the male lightning beast's body at the same time. As expected, 3 protective lightning bolts appeared on the male lightning beast's body. The 3 lightning bolts that looked like Xiao Hua blocked the 3 sword lights. Xiao Hua coldly snorted. He urged his magic power, and the 3 sword lights suddenly began to rotate. Immediately, The areas where the male lightning beast's protective lightning bolts were shining like fireworks. The three sword lights actually had the tendency to break through the male lightning beast's defenses. The male lightning beast was greatly alarmed and roared. The female lightning beast originally wanted to urge the lightning net again, but seeing the male lightning beast in such a hurry, she had no choice but to turn around. She waved her two hands, and two lightning bolts appeared, striking two of the sword lights. The male lightning beast hurriedly swatted the last sword light away. Grandma Tilda, this thunder beast's attack can actually hit divine sense through flying sword. Xiao Hua was somewhat miserable. Taking advantage of the female lightning beast helping the male lightning beast, while complaining, he used the lightning escape technique and flew towards Xue Xue. Wu Tilda, the female lightning beast's divine sense swept over, and it was furious. It flapped its pitch-black wings, and its short and fat body flew up slightly slowly. It waved a lightning bolt towards Xiao Hua's side. Yi! This female lightning beast seems to have a problem. Only now did Xiao Hua see that the female lightning beast's abdomen was bulging. It seemed to be pregnant. But in this life and death situation, Xiao Hua didn't dare to be compassionate. His body shook, and with a phoenix cry, his phoenix Dharma body flew out. Its huge wings flapped, and the lightning bolt was blocked by the Dharma body. When the female lightning beast suddenly saw Xiao Hua's phoenix Dharma body, it was also stunned. Then, when it saw Xiao Hua taking the opportunity to fly towards Xue Xue and the others, it became even more furious. It flapped its wings, and directly rushed towards the phoenix Dharma body. The phoenix Dharma body's sharp claws swiped down. With a peng sound, the female lightning beast's claws unhesitatingly hit the Dharma body's claws. The Dharma body trembled for a moment, and was knocked back more than 4 kai. The female lightning beast's body only trembled slightly, and then it went to grab Xiao Hua's back. Seeing that the blue lightning bolt was about to hit Xiao Hua slightly waved his hand, and his smiling face revealed his white teeth. Then, he suddenly waved his left hand, and a huge devil hammer was taken out from the space. With a woo sound, it smashed towards the female lightning beast's abdomen. From the sound of the wind, the female lightning beast knew the strength of the devil hammer. How could she dare to let the devil hammer get close to her? Without hesitation, she retracted her hand, and the lightning bolt shot towards the devil hammer. Her sharp claws also blocked in front of her abdomen. Peng peng peng. Seeing that the devil hammer had succeeded, Xiao Hua didn't hesitate. He waved his hammer 3 times in a row, and the lightning beast had no choice but to use its sharp claws to block. Admittedly, the lightning beast's strength could split a lion and a tiger, but Xiao Hua's strength was even more terrifying. After 3 hammer strikes, the female lightning beast's body trembled continuously. Its arms were weak, and it was almost unable to raise them. Again, Xiao Hua shouted, and once again raised the devil hammer. Gathering all the strength in his body, he smashed it towards the female lightning beast's abdomen. The female lightning beast's fierce eyes were also filled with determination. Without hesitation, it raised its arms and used its elbows to block the devil hammer. With a loud peng, the female lightning beast's whole body was sent flying, and fell into a pile of white bones. Moreover, the moment the female lightning beast landed, its face suddenly turned pale, and its whole body trembled incessantly. Its broken arms struggled to reach its abdomen, which was starting to squirm violently. The male lightning beast flew to Xiao Hua's side with great difficulty, blocking Xiao Hua from flying towards the female lightning beast. It opened its mouth, and a lightning beast's inner core that was flashing with blue light flew out. It flashed with a frightening brilliance and smashed towards Xiao Hua. Ayo, not good. The inner core's attack was comparable to a magic treasure, and it was even more flexible than a magic treasure. Xiao Hua wanted to try using the devil hammer, but he didn't dare. With a wave of his hand, the sun leaf fan appeared in his hand, and without hesitation, he waved it. A fire dragon was born and rushed towards the inner core. Unexpectedly, the inner core didn't dodge at all. The flickering lightning easily destroyed the fire dragon, and continued to smash towards Xiao Hua's head. -8. Chapter 1906. Go! Xiao Hua's figure quickly retreated. He pointed his finger, and the suppressing cloud seal flew over. Another loud peng sound rang out. The suppressing cloud seal was hit by the inner core, and it continuously flipped a few times in midair. It was entangled by lightning, and fell to the ground. Damn it, how can it be so powerful? Xiao Hua was greatly shocked. He hurriedly opened his mouth, and that scarlet spirit fire flew out. Xiao Hua did not hesitate and pointed his hand. More than half of his magic power gushed out, and that scarlet flame rushed towards the thunder beast's inner core. As soon as the spiritual fire appeared, the entire cave was filled with a crimson brilliance. Although the scorching heat did not change, the thunder beast could clearly sense the difference in the spiritual fire and immediately became anxious. Seeing the spiritual fire fly towards its Niden, the male thunder beast did not dare to be negligent. A thumb-sized thunderbolt was produced from its Niden and rushed into the long and thin crimson flame. The lightning was actually melted by the scarlet flame. The male lightning beast turned pale with fright. How could it dare to let its inner core touch this scarlet flame? It hurriedly opened its mouth, wanting to suck back the core. But right at this moment, a sorrowful cry rang out. The female lightning beast that had just fallen to the ground was rolling around on the white bones, and beneath its body, dirty blood flowed all over the ground. Seeing this, Xiao Hua did not care about morality and hurriedly pointed his finger at the spirit fire. It continued to fly towards the male lightning beast while he himself flew in front of Xue. Quickly go! Xiao Hua waved his hand and said. Eldest senior brother and senior sister-in-law are injured and cannot fly. Xue did not care about anything and hurriedly said. Let me. Xiao Hua walked in front of eldest senior brother and senior sister-in-law and hurriedly said, Excuse me, senior sister-in-law. As he said, he stretched out his hand and grabbed a person's arm with one hand. He turned around and was about to fly out, but at this moment, he heard an extremely shrill roar in the entire cave house. Then, the cave house that was originally annihilated by the scarlet spiritual fire was covered with a thick layer of blood color. Xiao Hua hurriedly turned his head and saw the male lightning beast standing in the center of the cave. It seemed to not care about the spirit fire flying towards it. The blood all over its body flew out and fell around the cave. A layer of bloodlight also rose around the cave and quickly wrapped around the entire cave. Blood seal. A thought immediately appeared in Xiao Hua's mind. This blood-colored seal was the innate ability of certain spiritual beasts of the 5th rank and above. At the most critical moment, the spiritual beast's life and blood essence would be sacrificed to form an extremely powerful restriction around its body. This restriction only had the effect of sealing and suppressing, so it was called a seal. However, any living creature within the blood-colored seal, unless their cultivation was 2 ranks higher than the spiritual beast, would not be able to break the seal. Xiao Hua understood the meaning of the blood-colored seal and his expression immediately changed. Although he could take the risk and rush to the entrance of the cave, he only had Xiong and Yang Qinglian. Xue was not in his hands. How could he abandon Xue, junior brother? Xiong glanced at Yang Qinglian and tenderness appeared in his eyes. Yang Qinglian immediately understood Xiong meaning and stuck the escape talisman on Xiao Hua's body. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to speak, Xiong placed his hand on his forehead. Hurry up and activate the escape talisman. Otherwise, even if you save me from here, I will definitely die from shaking my head. Eldest senior brother Xiao Hua was greatly sorrowful, but seeing the determination in Xiong eyes and Yang Qinglian's hand holding Xiong, he did not dare to delay in the slightest. He loosened his hand and Xiong and Yang Qinglian both fell to the ground. Let's go. Xiao Hua did not hesitate and pulled Xue who was beside him. Xue saw Yang Qinglian take out the escape talisman and understood long ago. She immediately took out her own escape talisman. At this moment, hearing Xiao Hua's command, she immediately activated her magic power and the two of them immediately concealed themselves and disappeared from the cave. Xiao Hua activated the escape talisman and immediately felt his vision darken. But in an instant, that blackness turned into a blood-red color that filled the sky. At the same time, a torrent-like oppressive feeling chased after Xiao Hua from behind. Xiao Hua understood that this was a blood-red seal that was sealing off the space. If he was caught by this blood-red color that filled the sky, then he would be sealed inside just like Xiangyang. Of course, this was only for an instant. As if he was forcefully pushed out of the door by someone else, Xiao Hua's eyes lit up and his entire body stopped in midair. And about a foot behind him was precisely the blood-red seal. Only feeling that his palm was wet, Xiao Hua turned his head to look. Xue Xue's face was similarly devoid of color. Like an injured little bird, she pulled on Xiao Hua's arm, lovely and moving. Xue Xue. Xiao Hua said warmly, we are fine. Xiao Hua. Xue Xue murmured and recklessly rushed into Xiao Hua's embrace. She desperately hugged Xiao Hua and used all her strength as if she wanted to pull Xiao Hua into her body. After the time it took to smoke a cigarette, Xue Xue lifted her small face from Xiao Hua's embrace. At this time, her face was somewhat pale and there were many traces of tears on her face. She asked, Xiao Hua, where did you go? Ari, it's a long story. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said, I was killed by that bastard Xiong Minute and was teleported to another array. As soon as I escaped danger, I immediately found the aura of the sun-moon corona and chased after it. Ari, so that's how it is. Xue Xue took out the sun-moon corona from her embrace and handed it to Xiao Hua. She said mournfully, it seems, this concubine shouldn't have taken the sun-moon corona away. Otherwise, it wouldn't have harmed the lives of eldest senior brother and eldest senior sister-in-law. Xiao Hua understood Xue Xue's thoughts. He knew that if he didn't come, Xue Xue would protect Xiangyang and Yang Qinglian. Although the female lightning beast wanted their lives, with the male lightning beast by their side, the two of them might not necessarily be in danger. Xue Xue, if you say so, then this husband, won't he feel even more guilty? Xiao Hua shook his head, you've already done your best. Ancestor Zhan and the others have already died in the hands of the lightning beast. It's already not easy for eldest senior brother and eldest senior sister-in-law to be protected by you until now. They are Ari. Sooner or later they will become the lightning beast's food. Xue Xue was sad and lowered her head. Perhaps. What do we do now? Xue Xue took a deep breath and asked, what is this blood-red thing? The lightning beast can't come out? This is called the blood-red seal. Xiao Hua said, I'm afraid the male lightning beast is already dead. The female lightning beast is giving birth. I don't know what the result is. Ari, for its own child, the male lightning beast, is also in trouble. Xue Xue didn't ask why Xiao Hua knew about the blood-red seal. She stared at the seal for a long time and sighed, then this lowly concubine and Xiao Hua should leave. Hey! Xiao Hua, you've already built your foundation? Only now did Xue Xue notice that Xiao Hua had already built his foundation. She couldn't help but be surprised. This lowly concubine already knew that Xiao Hua would definitely build his foundation. We just arrived at the Flame Forest Swamp, and this trip has already produced result. Haha, Xiao Hua forced a smile and said, it's just gathering, there's no need to talk about it. Then, he looked at the seal and scanned it with his divine sense for a long time, then said, I'm afraid we can't leave now. What? Xue Xue was anxious. When the female lightning beast breaks the seal and comes out, won't we die without a burial place? Xiao Hua shook his head and said, the situation was urgent just now, it was simply a matter of life and death, so I didn't have time to think carefully. Just as I left the cave and relaxed, I felt that we didn't have to run away just now. Ah, why? Xue Xue stared blankly and asked curiously. The male lightning beast has already died, and the female lightning beast has already given birth. It simply doesn't have the power to fight back. I only need to kill the female lightning beast, and eldest senior brother and eldest senior sister-in-law won't die. Even now, eldest senior brother and eldest senior sister-in-law might not necessarily die. Xiao Hua said with some regret. Xue Xue thought for a moment and said with a smile, this lowly concubine understands, but, you don't seem to have any confidence in breaking this blood seal, right? Xiao Hua nodded sadly and said, with my cultivation, I simply can't break it. You didn't think of it, but eldest senior brother probably thought of it. Xue Xue smiled sadly, eldest senior brother doesn't want you to accompany him in the seal for the rest of your life. Xiao Hua raised his head and stared straight at the seal. He shook his head and said, "Eldest senior brother simply doesn't know, he simply didn't think of it, he simply doesn't know anything, he just didn't want to drag me down, so he threatened me with death." Yen, so benevolent and righteous, worthy of being Xiao Hua's eldest senior brother, Xue Xue said very virtuously, "Xiao Hua is truly fortunate to have such a eldest senior brother." "That's right," Xiao Hua said with a smile, "so, I can't leave. I have to think of a way to break the seal here. Even if eldest senior brother and eldest senior sister-in-law died, I still have to bring their bodies back to the Imperial Thunder Sect, to the Myriad Thunder Valley." "Okay." Xue Xue also nodded resolutely. "Moreover, your husband's flying sword, cloud-suppressing seal, and that little bit of spiritual fire. Because I fled too hurriedly, they were all left behind in the seal. I'm afraid that your husband can't easily leave," Xiao Hua said again. Xue Xue pondered for a moment and nodded. "That's right, that spiritual fire is so powerful that even 6th grade spirit beasts are afraid of it, of course it can't be left here." Seeing that Xue Xue didn't ask about the origins of his flying sword and spiritual fire, Xiao Hua didn't explain. After letting Xue Xue take some medicinal pills to adjust her breathing, Xiao Hua set up a rabbit formation near the seal. He and Xue Xue hid inside it and then carefully thought about how to break the seal. Now Xiao Hua already understood that his memories of the Chao Wu's soul essence, the 5 spirits, and the blood seal all came from the flame soul essence. After the Chao Wu's soul essence was absorbed by the Phoenix Dharma body, its memories were also given to Xiao Hua. This blood seal might be relying on the Chao Wu's soul essence. Of course, the memories of these spirit beasts and vicious beasts weren't Xiao Hua's own. Only when he encountered a question could he find the answer. If he directly looked for the question, he still couldn't find the answer. The blood seal was exactly what Xiao Hua knew. It was the last method that some extremely powerful innate spirit beasts used to perish together. It was the most troublesome. If one wanted to break it, one must be 2 ranks higher than a high-grade spirit beast. In other words, only 8th grade spirit beasts could break it. This was also the strength required to break it from inside. 8th grade spirit beasts, that was the cultivation of early nascent soul stage. Only nascent soul stage cultivators of the Imperial Thunder Sect could possibly break this seal. If they were confident, they would have to be in the middle or late nascent soul stage. -8. Chapter 1907. Xiao Hua thought for a long time, but he had no clue. He thought of going back to the Imperial Thunder Sect to ask for help. But obviously, Xiong and Yang Qinglian were only Foundation Establishment middle stage cultivators. In the Myriad Thunder Valley, they were considered the mainstay, but in the Imperial Thunder Sect, they were nothing. Seeing how Xiao Hua killed 2 Foundation Establishment initial stage cultivators in the Imperial Thunder Sect without attracting any attention, Xiao Hua knew that it might not be useful if he went back to ask for help. Moreover, the Myriad Thunder Valley was helpless because there were no nascent soul stage cultivators on good terms. Or, ask Zhen Qing. Gantian. Senior Zun Ming. Xiao Hua thought for a while and shook his head. These 3 seniors are only golden core stage cultivators. It is not realistic to ask them to trouble nascent soul stage cultivators, or directly ask Thunder Meng Zhenren. Although Xiao Hua had the Sect Master token in his hand, he did not dare to ask the Imperial Thunder Sect Master. The best he could think of was Thunder Meng Zhenren. That is a nascent soul stage cultivator. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. He was not so naive as to ask Thunder Meng Zhenren for help after meeting him twice and having a good impression of him. Yes, there is still Zhen Yi. Xiao Hua suddenly thought of Zhen Yi who died in the cave. Zhen Yi is a golden core stage cultivator and also an alchemist of the Thunder Palace. He will definitely be valued by Thunder Meng Zhenren. There is no need to go through so much trouble. How can Thunder Meng Zhenren not come after knowing that there are lightning beasts here? Xiao Hua immediately stood up. But just as he stood up, he hesitated. Yes, Thunder Meng Zhenren opened the seal and saved Xiong and Yang Qinglian, but what about his spiritual fire? What about his flying sword? Wouldn't it fall into Thunder Meng Zhenren's eyes? Moreover, that is the inner core of a lightning beast. What if Thunder Meng Zhenren has some thoughts that he does not want others to know? Xue Xue, Xiong Yang Qinglian and himself, are we all going to? Xiao Hua did not dare to continue thinking. Although he really wanted to have a good impression of Lei Meng Daoist, but after all, he had never seen Lei Meng Daoist twice. He did not dare to take the risk. Because of the inner cores of the two lightning beasts in the seal, Xiao Hua did not dare to ask others to help him open the seal. I can only think of a way. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. He looked at Xue Xue, who had a serene expression. As long as she was by his side, she would always feel safe. He stood up and walked out of the formation. The cave abode in front of Xiao Hua was still wrapped in blood. It was quiet, like a cocoon. Xiao Hua walked to the front and released his Buddhist consciousness and divine sense. They could not enter, and he could not sense the dream slayer, spiritual fire, and other things. Soon after, Xiao Hua took out the devil's spear tip and stabbed it with all his might. The devil's spear tip simply couldn't leave any traces. After that, he tried all kinds of magic treasures, such as the leaf sun fan and the aqua pearl. Even Xiao Hua released his phoenix celestial body, but the sharp claws were unable to do anything. How is it, husband? Xue Xue also walked out of the formation and asked with concern. Sigh, it still doesn't work. Xiao Hua sighed. Don't worry, husband. We'll stay here with eldest senior brother. It doesn't matter if it's a day, a year, or even 10 years. You just have to slowly think about it. If you can easily break the blood seal of a 6th grade spiritual beast, wouldn't that be amazing? Xue Xue consoled. Ian, I know. Xiao Hua nodded. He looked around and asked, that's right, how did you all come here? Where's the fire ape? Where's Xiong Minute and the others? Hihi, husband finally asked. Xue Xue said with a smile. Soon after, she recounted what happened after Xiao Hua disappeared. As it turned out, after Xiao Hua was teleported, the 5 elements soul detention formation collapsed. The lightning beast and fire ape escaped from the valley. The 7 golden core cultivators brought their disciples and chased after them. Unexpectedly, just as they reached the mountain range, the fire ape and lightning beast separated and fled in different directions. Xiong Minute, Zhong Chengguang, and Sun Shangkong naturally led their disciples to chase after the fire ape. Zhen Yi, Liu Mingxing, Jiang Zhucheng, and Feng Shuqing naturally chased after the lightning beast. However, the lightning beast's flying speed was extremely fast. Zhen Yi and the other 3 golden core cultivators were naturally able to catch up to it. The Imperial Thunder Sect was known for their lightning evasion. Although Xiongyang's lightning evasion was not good, he was still better than the other 2 Foundation Establishment middle stage disciples from Xuanyan School. Furthermore, Feng Jiyu's flying technique was also extraordinary. Thus, they were able to chase after the lightning beast for so long. The lightning beast was already injured, so they were able to catch up to it. Moreover, they were able to kill it several times. Unfortunately, the lightning beast used its inner core to break through and escape. When they finally reached the lightning beast's immortal's cave, everyone was delighted. They thought that the lightning beast was at the end of its road and would not be able to resist. However, what welcomed them was actually another female lightning beast. Although this female lightning beast was pregnant, its emotions were explosive and it was very cunning. As soon as it saw them, it blocked the entrance of the immortal's cave and killed Feng Shuqing by surprise. Then, the 2 lightning beasts joined forces. They were equivalent to 2 middle-stage golden core cultivators. How could Zhen Yi, Liu Mingxing, and Jiang Zhucheng be a match for them? However, after the female lightning beast swallowed Feng Jiyu's brain matter, it wanted to attack Xue Xue again, but it was blocked by the male lightning beast. The female lightning beast then wanted to attack Xiongyang and Yang Qinglian, but it was blocked by Xue Xue. As a result, the male lightning beast only managed to injure the 2 of them, which also prevented the female lightning beast from attacking any further. As a result, for the next few days, it was all thanks to Xue Xue's protection that Xiongyang and Yang Qinglian's lives were saved. Today, however, the female lightning beast went berserk again, wanting to swallow Xiong and Yang Qinglian's brains. That was why Xiao Hua encountered it. Xiao Hua was naturally somewhat puzzled. He did not know why the male lightning beast wanted to protect Shui. Perhaps it was because of the true blood in Shui's body? However, Shui did not mention it, so Xiao Hua could not ask. After all, cultivators had their own secrets, and many of them could not be told to others. Alas, Martial Uncle Jean, I bet you didn't expect there to be two lightning beast. Xiao Hua sighed. Sometimes, it's better to be a little less greedy, that's true, but if it's related to lifespan, no one can be calm. Shui shook her head and said. Alas, Xiao Hua sighed and returned to the formation. After thinking for a moment, he waved his hand and took out the method to control the spiritual fire. Previously, he felt that this thing was really obscure, and because he had to learn new words, he only looked at a little bit. Only now did he know that this fire art was so powerful. He was afraid that it would be of great use in the future. Moreover, it was the most powerful method he currently had. In addition, the spiritual fire was also left in the seal, so he could tamper with the spiritual fire. Unknowingly, several days passed. On this day, just as Shui was about to leave the formation, Xiao Hua, who had been frowning and closed his eyes all this time, suddenly stood up from the ground with a whoosh. He laughed loudly and said, "The heavens have not forsaken me. This young master can use this method. Darling Xiao." Shui also stopped in her tracks. She turned her head back to look in surprise. "You really have a way. Don't be impatient, don't be impatient." Although Xiao Hua's eyes were somewhat apprehensive, his footsteps were firm. -8. Chapter 1908. Outside the seal, Xiao Hua closed his eyes and thought for a moment. He chose a place to sit cross-legged. With a wave of his hand, a shabby oil lamp was taken out from the space. Then, with a tap of his hand, a drop of oil flew out from the oil lamp. Xiao Hua put away the oil lamp and waved his hand. The Samadhi true fire was created and burned the oil lamp. Unfortunately, the oil lamp did not change in the slightest under the Samadhi true fire. There was no sign of it being ignited. Hiss. Xiao Hua took a deep breath. His face became more and more complicated. Then, he opened his mouth and spat out the icicle jus flame, but it still could not ignite the oil lamp. What should I do? Xiao Hua frowned. But then, his eyes lit up. He simply absorbed the icicle jus flame into his body. He closed his eyes and cast a spell on the oil lamp. Then, he released his Buddhist sense. Xiao Hua's Buddhist sense passed through the lamp oil and slowly used a secret technique of the divine fire art. After the time it took to light the lamp, a smile suddenly appeared on Xiao Hua's face. Soon after, the lamp oil floated to the blood-colored seal and lay flat on top of it. Xiao Hua was very relaxed. He turned his head and said with a smile, "Eldest brother is safe." "How?" Shui could not help but ask. "I can use a secret technique to contact the spiritual fire left in the seal. Right now, I'm controlling the spiritual fire to burn the seal. If it can burn it, the seal can be broken. Your spiritual fire is so powerful." Shui was dumbfounded. Even the blood-colored seal can be broken. Doesn't that mean it can break all the formations in the world? Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. "Wife, you're wrong. The Tao of formations is ever-changing. How can a cluster of spiritual fire be able to break it? Even if it's a seal, one must look at its attribute and see its flaws. If there are no changes after it is burned, it should be broken. If it causes other changes to the seal, of course, it can't be broken. I'm just trying to see if it has any effect or if it will cause other changes. So it's like that." Shui's tone seemed to be somewhat disappointed. She felt that Xiao Hua was omnipotent. "You should cultivate. This spirit fire is only a weak connection. I don't know what's going on inside. Moreover, I'm afraid that breaking this blood-colored seal isn't something that can be completed in a short period of time." After the time it took to eat a meal, Xiao Hua raised his eyes to look at Shui who had been staring at him the entire time and said, "Okay." Shui could be considered to be obedient to Xiao Hua's words. She stood up and walked out of the formation. Don't go too far. If there's anything, hurry up and send me a messaging talisman. Xiao Hua still didn't forget to warn him. This sentence was very ordinary, but it was also very warm. It was like the wife of a mortal family going out, and the husband casually exhorted her. Xue Xue's heart naturally warmed when she heard this. She turned her head and said, I understand, husband. This lowly concubine will only go out for a moment and will be back soon. Hehe, good. Xiao Hua then turned around and closed his eyes to control the spiritual fire that he could only sense a tiny bit. A day passed by quickly. Although Xiao Hua had just entered foundation establishment and his cultivation and spiritual sense had greatly improved, just relying on the secret technique of the divine flame art to control the spiritual fire was like a mortal using a needle to stand upside down on an awn of wheat. The difficulty was self-evident. In just a day's time, Xiao Hua was already extremely tired. He had no choice but to stop and rest for a bit. It's time to cultivate a foundation establishment cultivation technique. Xiao Hua waved his hand and took out the furious flame arts that he had no choice but to be bestowed upon him. First, he looked through the elementary cultivation technique and meridians. He hesitated in his heart. My physique has now followed the tempering of my bones and has already become an earth attribute physique. If I cultivate a fire attribute cultivation technique, there will definitely be obstacles. Moreover, there might also be other drawbacks. I might not know when I just started cultivating, but if they appear in the middle or late stages of foundation establishment, wouldn't it be very bad? Also, eldest senior brother said it well. There are only 2 sets of meridians to cultivate. One set is formed by chi refinement, and the other set is formed by foundation establishment. These 2 sets are precisely the intersection of dragon and tiger, the harmony of yin and yang. My first set of meridians was tempered by a fire attribute cultivation technique. If the second set of meridians was tempered by an earth attribute cultivation technique, wouldn't it coincide with the principle of mutual promotion and suppression of the 2 attributes of fire and earth? Then, wouldn't it be easier for me to condense my core in the future? Thinking about the earth attribute cultivation technique, Xiao Hua thought of the cultivation technique that he had obtained from the spirit husbandry sect disciples. Back then, he didn't mean to give it to Zun Shu and the others. He didn't expect that he would be able to use it today. Following which, Xiao Hua took out the cultivation technique of the spirit husbandry sect and looked through it carefully. The cultivation technique of the spirit husbandry sect was called the earth expansion technique. It wasn't considered a high-grade cultivation technique. Just by looking at the meridians that it could open, one could tell that it would have limited prospects after successfully cultivating it. Furthermore, Xiao Hua had seen many chi refinement cultivation techniques in the Imperial Thunder Sect's library and had some understanding of cultivation techniques. However, Xiao Hua didn't have much to pick at this moment. He couldn't possibly go back and ask Wu Hai for an earth attribute cultivation technique. He also couldn't wait to find a cultivation technique before cultivating. Forget it. Since I have the earth crystal yarrow milk, even if the earth expansion technique is the lowest grade earth attribute cultivation technique, how can I not condense my core? Even if I take a few decades or even 100 years to condense my core, would I still be afraid of being ridiculed? Xiao Hua laughed mischievously. He put away the rage flame technique and immersed his divine consciousness into the jade slip to carefully comprehend the earth amplification technique. Thus, the days passed by. Every day, Xiao Hua would use a secret technique to control the spiritual fire. When he was tired, he would cultivate the earth expansion technique. At this moment, Xiao Hua wasn't in a hurry to use the earth crystal yarrow milk. Instead, he slowly absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and slowly opened up his meridians. The cultivation technique became more and more refined under Xiao Hua's meticulous carving. Other than the basic foundational cultivation technique, Xiao Hua only comprehended the God Flame technique. He hoped that he could find some secret technique from it to save Xiong and Yang Qinglian faster. It was a pity that the God Flame technique was extremely obscure. Furthermore, it was the latter half of the technique and the words were different. Although Xiao Hua completely comprehended the jade letter that Gantian Mountain gave him, he felt that there was something wrong with it. There was a lot of content in the God Flame technique that was incongruous with the words, which made Xiao Hua feel vexed. However, the secret technique that Xiao Hua was using was going smoothly. It seemed like it was the simplest secret technique. Haha, great. Xiao Hua had been cultivating in silence the entire time. He silently sat in front of the seal and controlled the spiritual fire. It wasn't until a month later that he suddenly laughed loudly, clapped his hands, and stood up. What's wrong? Husband. Seeing that, Xue immediately stopped cultivating. Her face was filled with smiles as she looked at Xiao Hua in anticipation. Xiao Hua smiled. Everything that happened before was me using a secret technique to faintly control the spiritual fire. If I had confidence in my heart, I wouldn't dare to pat my chest. However, from today onwards, I can pat my chest. Haha, really? Husband, you are so amazing. Xue immediately pounced over and hugged Xiao Hua. Feeling Xue's towering chest, Xiao Hua smiled. Husband's chest doesn't seem to have anything to pat. Xue's face instantly turned red. However, she didn't leave Xiao Hua's embrace. She rubbed against Xiao Hua's embrace a few times and smiled. When eldest senior brother and senior sister-in-law come out, I will let you pat me properly. Ha ha ha. Great. Xiao Hua kissed Xue's cherry lips. In the following days, the smile on Xiao Hua's face became even brighter. His expression became even more at ease. Before the seal, he controlled the spiritual fire for even longer. Xue looked at her lover who was in high spirits from the side. Her face was filled with a sweet smile, but there was always a trace of gloominess that flashed across her face from time to time. That gloominess was like a dark cloud in the clear sky. Even if the sun was shining high up in the sky, the cool breeze couldn't blow it away. It was unknown when the thunder and lightning in the dark clouds would descend. Like this, several months passed. Counting with one's fingers, Xiong and Yang Qinglian had been trapped by the bloody seal for nearly a year. Xue's cultivation didn't make any progress and there were no signs of foundation building. However, Xue didn't seem to be in a hurry at all. It was as if this kind of life, this kind of atmosphere, was what she needed. If it wasn't for the seal that needed to be broken, Xue almost hoped that this kind of cultivation could last forever. Xue often sat cross-legged beside Xiao Hua to cultivate. She liked to see Xiao Hua's serious and focused appearance. She liked to see Xiao Hua's occasionally frown and the corners of his mouth curl up. She liked even more to smell the scent emitted from Xiao Hua's body. She closed her eyes and cultivated peacefully. Of course, if she could be held in his arms and listen to his heartbeat, Xue would be even more satisfied. The Thunder Beast's cave abode was like a paradise. Although the flame forest swamp was filled with danger and there were many ferocious beasts, none of them dared to come close. Even the fire rats and fire bats, which were everywhere in the lava, only dared to wander far away from the cave abode. None of them dared to come close. Therefore, not a single cultivator came here for training. Not a single accident came to disturb Xue and Xiao Hua's peaceful life. It seemed that everything was going according to Xue's plan. Unfortunately, on this day, Xiao Hua let out a long roar. His figure rose from the ground, and with a wave of his hand, the lamp oil that had been spread on the blood-colored light cocoon was taken into the space by Xiao Hua. Afterward, Xiao Hua's expression was both joyful and dignified. He slowly formed gestures on his hands. As the gestures were formed, Xue felt that the surrounding spiritual energy poured into Xiao Hua's body like a hurricane, and all the spiritual power in Xiao Hua's body gushed out. Go! Xiao Hua loosened his hand and launched the gesture into the seal. Then, he flicked his hand and put a few elixirs into his mouth. He stared at the seal with bright eyes, where the gesture was launched. In just a moment, a crimson light flashed on the blood-colored seal. The crimson light seemed particularly pure and dazzling in the scarlet seal. Before Xue could see it clearly, the crimson light flowed into Xiao Hua's hand like mercury. Isn't it Xiao Hua's spiritual fire? Rumble. Just as the spiritual fire fell into Xiao Hua's hand, the entire blood-colored seal began to vibrate. The stagnant blood red began to boil like boiling hot water. Immediately, this blood-red color seemed to be washed away by rain. It quickly faded away, revealing the original cave of the Thunder Beast. Xiao Hua was about to cry out in joy, but he heard a baby cry from inside the cave. Thunder Beast? Xiao Hua immediately thought of the female Thunder Beast that was giving birth, and he couldn't help but be shocked. -8. Chapter 1909. Eldest Senior Brother. Xiao Hua was shocked. He quickly took the spiritual fire in his hand and flew into the cave. At the same time, Xue Xue was also very nervous. In this 1 year, they had planned many things, but the premise was that Xiong Yang and Yang Qinglian had assassinated the Mother Lightning Beast. They had never thought that the Mother Lightning Beast could survive. If the Mother Lightning Beast lived, and Xiong Yang and Yang Qinglian died, then, wouldn't Xiao Hua's 1 year of hard work be used as a wedding dress for the Mother Lightning Beast? Wouldn't it be helping the tyrant? There was a restriction in the cave, so Xiao Hua's divine sense couldn't penetrate it. But before he could fly near the cave, Xiong Yang's surprised voice sounded, "Little junior brother Tilda, damn it." Xiao Hua's heart was immediately relieved. "Eldest senior brother, you almost scared little brother to death," Xiao Hua said with a smile, patting his chest in an exaggerated manner that he didn't even want to pat. "Thank the heavens, thank the heavens." Xue Xue patted Xiao Hua's long-awaited chest and cried out in joy. "Ah! Eldest senior brother?" Xiao Hua was 1 step ahead of Xue Xue when he flew into the cave. He was shocked again, and Xue Xue's heart was in suspense. Xue Xue hurriedly increased her speed and flew into the cave. The Xiong Yang in front of her really gave Xue Xue a shock. Previously, Xiong Yang's hair was white and he looked like an old man. But now, although there were still some wrinkles on his face, his hair was already dark and he looked almost 20 years younger. "Eldest senior brother, you took the Lightning Beast's inner core?" Xue Xue immediately cried out in surprise. Xiao Hua also laughed loudly. "Eldest senior brother can't be old even if you want to." "Wah tilde tilde," another baby's cry rang out. Xiao Hua curiously looked over and said, "Good, this Lightning Beast cub is already a year old, why isn't it dead yet?" This. Xiong Yang's face was full of embarrassment. He even said with a red face, "No. It's not the Lightning Beast, it's Xiong Zhili." "Xiong Zhili?" Xiao Hua was stunned. He looked over and saw Yang Qinglian turn her head. In her arms, wasn't it a baby? Moreover, the baby's head was covered in white. "What? Ayo, don't look at indecent things." Xiao Hua suddenly called out and turned his eyes over. Xue Xue was standing right next to him. His line of sight, wasn't it precisely the blindingly white expanse that had been covered? Xue Xue was also stunned, but then she naturally covered her hand, spat at Xiao Hua, and quickly walked over. On the other side, Yang Qinglian's face was red. She wanted to come over, but she was too shy to come over. Eldest senior brother, what's going on?" Xiao Hua's voice stuttered as he pulled on Xiong Yang's sleeve and asked. Hihi, Xiong Yang had a silly smile on his face. It was really a proud smile. He pulled Xiao Hua's hand and said, "Junior brother, follow me outside to talk." "Oh, that's right, that's right." Xiao Hua quickly walked out, and Xiong Yang also came out. When Xiong Yang proudly explained the matter, Xiao Hua suddenly understood. He laughed loudly and patted Xiong Yang's shoulder. "Eldest senior brother, oh eldest senior brother, little brother and Xue Xue had always been guessing how you and sister-in-law were doing inside, but we didn't expect. Eldest senior brother was really living a comfortable life. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have worked so hard day and night. Maybe later on, there would even be a Xiong Zai. Everyone, what do you think?" It turned out that the heavens really blessed a loyal person like Xiong Yang. After the male Thunder Beast used the blood seal to seal the entire cave, the male Thunder Beast died. At this time, the female Thunder Beast was giving birth. It was unknown whether it was because Xiao Hua hit the female Thunder Beast and damaged the position of the Thunder Beast's fetus, or it was dangerous for a Thunder Beast to give birth. In short, the female Thunder Beast had a difficult birth. Blood kept flowing out, and it was impossible to stop it. Moreover, the Thunder Beast's baby was still not born. Xiangyang and Yang Qinglian originally wanted to kill the female Thunder Beast to save their own lives, but seeing this situation, Xiangyang and Yang Qinglian couldn't bear to do it. In the end, Yang Qinglian even helped the female Thunder Beast give birth. However, the heavenly Tao was fair. Thunder Beasts were ferocious creatures in the world, and they were always obstructed by the heavenly Tao. The female Thunder Beast gave birth to the Thunder Beast's baby. With great difficulty, Yang Qinglian held the Thunder Beast's baby in her arms. She only licked the mucus off the Thunder Beast's body clean. The female Thunder Beast's eyes were filled with love as she passed away. However, the mother and child were connected by heart. When the female Thunder Beast passed away, she placed the Thunder Beast's little hand in Yang Qinglian's hand. She also didn't forget to pat her still protruding belly. At first, Yang Qinglian didn't understand. Later, many days after the female Thunder Beast died, Yang Qinglian suddenly understood. The female Thunder Beast was talking about its own Niden. It wanted Yang Qinglian to take its Niden in exchange for the life of the Thunder Beast's baby. The female Thunder Beast had planned this for a long time, but she didn't expect Yang Qinglian and Xiangyang to be so kind. The Thunder Beast's baby was just born. It didn't have wings at all, but it had a small tail. Its small hands and feet were curled up together. It was so pitiful, just like a pitch-black baby. How could Yang Qinglian bear to kill it? Later, for the sake of his Taoist foundation and lifespan, Xiangyang took out the male Thunder Beast's Niden and refined it according to the secret method. The secret method was correct. Xiangyang's Taoist foundation was indeed repaired, but his lifespan should also be extended. However, the secret method didn't expect that the male Thunder Beast's Niden was so strong that after Xiangyang used it, he didn't fall. For 49 consecutive nights, he beat the drum and challenged Xiangyang every night. Fortunately, Yang Qinglian was a foundation-building expert. It could be said that she met her match, a general meeting a talent. After 49 matches, Yin and Yang converged and finally gave birth to the Xiongzhili that Xiangyang had been talking about for God knows how many years. 10 months of pregnancy. That is, 10 days ago, Yang Qinglian just gave birth to Xiongzhili. Now, it's not even a month old yet. Isn't she breastfeeding? Xiangyang heard Xiao Hua's joke, but he didn't laugh. He turned around and called, Qinglian Tilda, the lowly concubine is here. At this time, Yang Qinglian had finished breastfeeding Xiongzhili. She tidied up her clothes and walked out with a plump and rosy face. When she saw Xiao Hua, she couldn't help but blush again. Then, she looked at Xiangyang. The two nodded slightly. At the same time, they bent their legs and were about to kneel down. Ayo, you can't. When Xiao Hua saw this, he was immediately alarmed. He brushed his hand and immediately grabbed the two people's arms. He called out, eldest senior brother, eldest senior sister, why are you waiting? Xiangyang and Yang Qinglian simply didn't listen to Xiao Hua. The magic power in their bodies rapidly revolved, and the divine abilities in their bodies surged. They were about to kneel down. He, eldest senior brother and eldest senior sister, are you going to test this little brother's cultivation? Xiao Hua chuckled mischievously. True essence flowed, and magic power was also used. It was the same situation that Xiangyang encountered before. No matter how much strength the two of them exerted, no matter how much they struggled, they didn't move an inch. They simply couldn't kneel down. Xiangyang and Yang Qinglian's eyes flashed with astonishment. Absolute astonishment. The magic power of two middle foundation building cultivators. This wasn't a battle of magic treasures. It was a true competition. They actually couldn't compare to Xiao Hua. -8. Chapter 1910. A trace of bitterness and helplessness flashed through Xiangyang's eyes. He said in a low voice, Sigh, Qinglian, let's leave it at that. Junior brother isn't an outsider. Just let him know our thoughts. I'll listen to Lord Husband's instructions. Yang Qinglian knew that she couldn't kneel down, so she said hurriedly, That's right. If you have something to say, just say it. Why do you have to be like this? Xiao Hua hurriedly helped the two up. Xiong said with a smile, actually, there are two things I want to thank junior brother for. The first is definitely to break this blood seal. It will allow brother and your senior sister-in-law to see the light of day again. It will also allow you, junior martial nephew, to return to the human world. Xiong words were correct. Xiong and Yang Qinglian had also tried countless times to break this blood seal. Unfortunately, they couldn't even leave a trace on the seal. If it wasn't for Xiao Hua, not to mention 1 year, even 10 years, 100 years, or 1,000 years, the two of them wouldn't be able to come out. Then Xiong Zhili wouldn't be able to see a third person. Eldest senior brother sacrificed himself to let junior brother escape. If junior brother didn't save junior brother, how could junior brother face others? Xiao Hua said with a smile, moreover, junior brother just happened to be able to break this seal and increase junior brother's cultivation by a lot. Why wouldn't junior brother do it? Ayo, junior brother, you actually built foundation? After reuniting from the calamity, Xiong and Yang Qinglian only now discovered that Xiao Hua had built foundation. Congratulations, congratulations. Ha ha ha. Xiao Hua laughed loudly. Junior brother had already built foundation when junior brother saw you 2 a year ago. Eldest senior brother's congratulations were late by a year. Of course, it was too urgent at that time. I really didn't expect junior brother to build foundation so quickly, Xiong said with a smile. Oh right, junior brother, inside the 5 elements soul capturing formation. Yang Qinglian saw that Xiong changed the topic and immediately coughed twice. Hearing this, Xiong immediately woke up and said, oh, just now I wanted to thank junior brother for saving my life. After that, I want to ask junior brother for a favor. Eldest senior brother, as long as junior brother can do it, I will agree, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Oh, you're the one who said it. Xiong smiled, looking very sinister. What is it? Xiao Hua had a bad feeling in his heart. It's very simple. Just make Xiongji worship you as his master. Yang Qinglian could not help but say. Ah! Xiao Hua was completely stupefied, and stuttered a bit. You're not mistaken, right, eldest senior sister-in-law? Yes, there's no mistake. Xiong nodded. I've discussed it with your sister-in-law. We want Xiongji to worship you as his master. You agreed to it. Don't tilde. Xiao Hua hurriedly shook his head and said, eldest senior brother, this is something that I am unable to do, I definitely cannot agree to. Yang Qinglian was slightly disappointed, but Xiong persisted, little junior brother, others may not know about your divine arts, but how could I not know? If I don't worship a good teacher like you, who should I worship? Xiao Hua sighed and said with a bitter smile, I've already used my divine sense to examine Xiongji just now. All of his meridians have been opened, and he is born with the lightning attribute. Moreover, his physical body seems to be very good. This kind of cultivation genius is rare in the Imperial Thunder sect. He can even worship any nascent soul cultivator in the Imperial Thunder sect as his master, so why must he worship me as his master? Xiong smiled and said, I've long known about Li Er's talent. First, it's the power of my lightning beast's inner core. Second, it's Qinglian's secret technique that cultivates the lightning escape. Both of these are inseparable from little junior brother. If you don't want to be his master, who can? This is the will of the heavens. Eldest senior brother, Xiao Hua said firmly. You also know that I was born as a loose cultivator, and have always lacked a systematic and comprehensive understanding of cultivation. This is something that must be done as a master, right? Just based on this point, I definitely cannot be Li Er's master. Ayo, that's right. Xiong also came to a realization. Xiao Hua was good in every way, and his divine arts were also outstanding, but his foundation was really too poor. He was absolutely unqualified to teach disciples. If Xiongji were to be taught by Xiao Hua, wouldn't he become a loose cultivator? Forget it, eldest senior brother Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said, I originally wanted to give him a gift, but I don't have anything suitable in my storage bag. How about this? When Li Er's cultivation is successful in the future, how about I give him a great divine art? Great divine art? Xiong stared blankly. He himself knew that all the great techniques of nascent soul cultivators were called divine arts, and great divine arts naturally referred to the great techniques of spirit-severing cultivators and above. It was absolutely a secret technique of spirit-severing cultivators. Xiao Hua had just reached the early stage of foundation establishment, and he actually promised Xiong Zhili a great divine art of spirit-severing cultivators. How could he not be stunned on the spot? This little junior brother, did he get it wrong again? This was Xiong Yang's first reaction. Thank you, little junior brother. Yang Qinglian at the side was overjoyed. She quickly hugged Xiong Zhili and was about to kneel down again. Don't. Xiao Hua quickly held her again and said with a smile, it's not a big deal. When Leah grows up, I will find something to teach him. Hehe. Okay. Xiong Yang quickly put away his doubts and said with a smile. Great divine art, in Xiao Hua's words, it's not a big deal. Damn it, Xiao Hua. I don't know if he knows what a great divine art is. He actually dared to give it to someone so casually. Roar. A hoarse, weak, and extremely helpless voice came out from inside the cave. Lightning beast. This voice was extremely soft, but also extremely familiar. Xiao Hua couldn't help but call out. Xiao Hua looked up and saw that Xue was also carrying a pitch-black baby that was less than a foot long. The baby's pitch-black skin was in stark contrast to Xue's white skin. Yes, this is the lightning beast cub. Xiong Yang said with a bitter smile, this thing is born like this. It doesn't know what to eat or drink. It doesn't use spirit herbs or pills. It doesn't even use your senior sister-in-law's milk. Previously, it would often cry, but now it has been more than a month. If it still doesn't cry, I'm afraid it won't make it. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over it. Sure enough, the lightning beast cub was extremely weak. If nothing unexpected happened, it would die today or tomorrow. Ari, poor child. Xue said in a low voice with a mournful look on her face. Of course, Xiong Zhili's parents were next to him. This lightning beast cub's parents had already passed away, so who could take care of it? If a vicious person took it, they would probably use it to refine some sinister magic weapon. Give it to me, Xiao Hua said after thinking for a while. Darling Xiao, do you have a way? Xue was overjoyed and stretched out her arm to hand over the lightning beast cub. Xiao Hua shook his head. I don't know, but since you all don't have a way, give it to me. Saying that, he took out a spirit storage bag and pretended to put it in, but actually sent it into the space. As soon as the lightning beast cub entered the space was instantly filled with lightning, which crackled as they struck the lightning beast. The lightning entered its body, but surprisingly, the lightning beast cub wasn't injured at all. It even opened its extremely cute little paws seductively. Damn it, this young master here. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly as he thought of little Silver and the water pattern butterfly's eggs. Ari, if I had a spirit storage bag, little Lei wouldn't be like this. Xiong Yang sighed. Little Lei? Xiao Hua was blank for a moment before he understood and smiled. Little Lei, that's a good name. Then, he glanced at the cave abode again. Haha, little junior brother, there's no need to look anymore. There's nothing left in the cave abode. I've been inside for a year. Xiong Yang said as he patted Xiao Hua on the shoulder. Hehe, it's nothing. I'm just looking at the lightning beast's corpse and helping little Lei bury it. Xiao Hua said with a smile. Xiong Yang pulled out 4 storage bags from his waist and handed them to Xiao Hua. These are the things inside the cave abode. Apart from Martial Uncle Genies, there's also what I left behind. They're all here. Take them. Martial Uncle Genies. Xiao Hua smacked his lips. He really did want Genies' storage bag, because there would definitely be pill formulas inside. Unfortunately, Xiong Yang said, Martial Uncle Genies' corpse and storage bag will be taken back to the Imperial Thunder Sect. I can't give them to you. Moreover, I've also taken the other half of the male lightning beast's core. After all, I have to give the sect an explanation. Of course, the female lightning beast's core and the 2 lightning beast's corpses are all in one storage bag. I don't need to give them to the sect. 4 storage bags. Big senior brother, you've given me too much. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, I only need one. He, take them. Xiong Yang said indifferently, I've already counted them. My 10,000 Thunder Valley has been poor for a long time. I have to take some things back. In addition, there are some things that I can't give to my master. Otherwise, I'm willing to give everything to you. So it's like this. Xiao Hua understood that Xiong Yang had already taken a lot. These were all for him, so he took them without any hesitation and said with a smile, Thank you, big senior brother, for your generous gift. It's nothing. You deserve it. Xiong Yang shook his head and said, Actually, everything in this cave should be given to you. Don't tilde. Xiao Hua hurriedly waved his hand and said with a smile, Little brother's appetite is small. Just give me a little. Just give me a little. Shue looked at the 4 storage bags that Xiao Hua took. All of them were high-grade goods. Xiong Yang should have obtained them from the cultivators who were killed by the thunder beasts. Needless to say, the things inside these 4 storage bags were definitely not what Xiao Hua meant by a little bit. Big senior brother, can we leave now? Xiao Hua asked. Of course. When little junior brother's spiritual fire was about to burn the seal, I've already looked through the entire cave several times. Xiong Yang replied. Okay. Xiao Hua turned around and put away the rabbit formation. Everyone followed Xiao Hua and flew out. Outside the mountain peak, the flame forest mountains were still hot. However, Xiong Yang and Yang Qinglian took a deep breath, looked at each other, and said with a smile, The air outside is still fresh. Of course, after staying in a pile of bones for a year, even if they were newlyweds every night, they probably wouldn't be able to bear it. Big senior brother, I'm afraid you can't train with little brother and Shue anymore, right? Xiao Hua asked with a smile. Hearing this, Yang Qinglian's face flushed red again. She was extremely charming. How was she still the same as before? Xiong Yang shook his head and said, Of course not. My lifespan should have been resolved. Leah has also been born. I naturally have to accompany your senior sister-in-law back to 10,000 Thunder Valley. -8. Chapter 1911. Then, he looked at Xiao Hua. You've also built your foundation, and your abilities aren't below mine. With you accompanying Shue, I can rest assured. All right. Xiao Hua nodded. I'll accompany senior brother back to Shihuang town. All right. Xiong Yang originally wanted to refuse, but after thinking for a while, he nodded. Then, the 4 of them flew out of Flame Forest Swamp. Along the way, Xiong Yang's expression was especially happy. Xiao Hua followed Xiong Yang and flew in front. He looked behind him at Yang Qinglian and Shue and said with a smile, Hey, senior brother, master will be happy when we go back this time. He even brought Xiong Zhili back. That's one thing. Moreover, didn't you build your foundation too? How can master not be happy? Xiong Yang immediately replied. Core formation after foundation building, master, won't be happy for long. Xiao Hua shook his head slightly. You should understand master's heart. Xiong Yang advised. It's hard to say. Xiao Hua was a bit annoyed. He had switched to cultivating earth-type techniques, so he couldn't explain it to Xiong Yang. At this moment, several divine senses swept over and locked onto several people in a very rude manner. Who is it? Xiao Hua was angry and shouted coldly. Unfortunately, he didn't know any divine senses that could harm others. Otherwise, he definitely wouldn't hesitate to use it. Fellow Taoist. A late-stage foundation building cultivator flew over from afar, followed by several middle and early-stage foundation building cultivators. Fellow Taoist, please. Xiong Yang pulled Xiao Hua and stepped forward. He cupped his hands and said, I'm Xiong Yang from the Imperial Thunder Sect. What business do you have with me? Fellow Daoist Xiong, I'm Cheung Ming from the Spirit Husbandry Sect. When the cultivator heard that he was a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect, his expression immediately changed. He smiled and said, I just want to ask fellow Daoist about a small matter. Oh, please speak. Xiong Yang nodded. I wonder if fellow Daoist Xiong has seen the soul essence of a ferocious beast. Or a ferocious beast unrelated to the spirit beasts in Flame Forest Swamp. Cheung Ming hesitated and asked. Xiong Yang was stunned. He scratched his head and said, I don't know what fellow Daoist Cheung is talking about, but I'm sure that my junior brother and I have never seen such a ferocious beast. I see. Cheung Ming looked at Xiong Yang, then at Xiao Hua, then at Yang Qinglian and the baby in her arms. He nodded and said, then I'll have to trouble fellow Daoist Xiong. Please. Senior Marshal Brother Cheung Tilda, a middle-stage Foundation Establishment disciple at Cheung Ming's side, said in a low voice, Elder Yuan gave the order to strictly interrogate all those above middle-stage Foundation Establishment. Cheung Ming said unhappily, Elder also instructed that all Aurus Core Stage cultivators must report to him. Are you also going to block Aurus Core Stage cultivators? This is Senior Brother Cheung's matter. The disciple muttered. Cheung Ming flicked his sleeves. I have my own plans. Please excuse me, fellow Daoist. Cheung Ming cupped his fists and said with a smile, if fellow Daoist Xiong sees this item in the Flame Forest Swamp, please send me a message. I'll be eternally grateful. Of course. Xiong Yang nodded and looked at everyone. Then, he left with Xiao Hua and the others. Just as Xiong Yang left, Cheung Ming turned his head and said angrily, Junior Marshal Brother Li Dongming, since this team is led by me, please don't break the rules of the sect. For the past half a year, Junior Marshal Brother Li has doubted my decisions many times. Senior Marshal Brother Cheong, I'm doing this for the sake of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Li Dongming said with a fake smile, since there are disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect coming out from the Flame Forest Swamp, although the direction is wrong, I still have to ask them. There's no need to search their souls, but they have to swear a heart oath, right? Cheung Ming almost laughed out loud. You want to force the disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect to swear a heart oath? Why? Can't I? Li Dongming said stubbornly, our spirit husbandry sect is no longer the spirit husbandry sect from a year ago. Even if we can't compare to the Imperial Thunder Sect now, we will surpass them sooner or later. Besides, it's just 2 middle-stage Foundation Establishment Stage cultivators, 1 early-stage Foundation Establishment Stage cultivator, and 1 Chi Refinement Stage cultivator. What's the big deal about forcing them to swear a heart oath? Do you think the Imperial Thunder Sect can challenge our Spirit Husbandry Sect? I can't be bothered to talk to you. Cheung Ming waved his sleeves and was about to fly away. However, Li Dongming was still in high spirits. He laughed and said, there hasn't been any news for more than a year. I'm afraid that everyone has slacked off. I'll use the disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect to raise everyone's spirit. Which junior marshal brother is willing to follow me to take a look? I'm willing. There were actually a few people who weren't afraid of death and were excited. You guys. Cheung Ming looked around and saw that they were people who didn't get along with him in the sect or people who were very close to Li Dongming. He smiled and said, you guys can go. I'll go back and report this. Hee, Senior Marshal Brother Cheong, you can go too. Li Dongming laughed loudly. I've vented my anger for the Imperial Thunder Sect. Maybe Elder Yuan will reward me. That's right. The rest of the people shouted and followed Li Dongming to chase after Xiong Yang and the others. Seeing this, Cheung Ming shook his head slightly. He knew that since a year ago, the disciples of the Spirit Husbandry Sect had obtained Chao Chen's soul essence and their cultivation had increased by a lot. In the beginning, they were still cautious when they searched around the Flame Forest Swamp. However, as they gradually became stronger, they became bolder. Other than the big sects like the Country of Shi's 3 cultivation sects, the Washing Flower Sect and the Imperial Thunder Sect, many cultivators from the other small sects had been killed. Even cultivators in the middle and late stages of the Foundation Establishment stage were killed by the Spirit Husbandry Sect. Therefore, their confidence grew. How could they not covet the 4 cultivators from the Imperial Thunder Sect and their children? Most importantly, there were 4 storage bags hanging on the waist of the early stage Foundation Establishment stage cultivator. Let's go. We'll go back. Cheung Ming smiled bitterly and waved his hand. He led the people who were still standing in the air and left. He naturally knew that the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect would definitely be at a disadvantage. However, what did this have to do with him? He only cared about reporting Li Dongming's dissatisfaction with his management to the elders. Xiao Hua had followed Xiangyang for less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea when Li Dongming's divine sense swept over. Xiao Hua was furious and was about to stop when Xiangyang winked at him and said, "Hurry up and leave." Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. Then, he followed Xiangyang and flew out of the flame forest swamp using a normal flying technique. Quick tilde catch up to them. Li Dongming saw that the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect had escaped and immediately became excited. He ordered the disciples of the Spirit Husbandry sect to give chase. In the time it took to smoke a cigarette, Xiangyang and the others arrived at the top of a fire lake. There were no other cultivators nearby. Xiangyang stopped and gestured for Yang Qinglian to stand behind him. He turned around and said coldly, "I wonder why fellow cultivators of the Spirit Husbandry sect are chasing after me. Do you not want the Imperial Thunder sect to give face to the Spirit Husbandry sect?" Ha ha ha. Li Dongming waved his hand and several disciples surrounded Xiao Hua and the others. He laughed maniacally and said, "You took my Spirit Husbandry sect's Chao Wu soul essence. If you don't hand it over, quickly tell us where it is. Otherwise, don't blame us for not giving face to the Imperial Thunder sect." -8. Chapter 1912. Damn it. Seeing how Li Dongming was so arrogant as to pin the crime on his own family, Xiao Hua immediately thought of the few Spirit Husbandry sect disciples who were at the peak of the Qi refinement realm. He couldn't help but fly into a rage. Birds of a feather flock together. Why are all the Spirit Husbandry sect disciples the same? But soon after, Xiao Hua smiled again and thought to himself, although this guy is extremely boorish and wants to make things up, he's actually right. Xiangyang's expression changed slightly, but he did not panic. He cupped his hands and said, "Fellow Daoist from the Spirit Husbandry sect, I've already explained to fellow Daoist Qiongming that I don't know what soul essence you're talking about. Your senior brother has already let us go. Fellow Daoist, how can you pin the crime on us? Haha, senior brother Qiong was careless and was deceived by you. Fortunately, I realized it early. Otherwise, you would have escaped from the flame forest swamp." Xiangyang frowned and said, "Fellow Daoist Li, I don't understand what you're saying." "You don't understand?" Li Dongming sneered. "If you're not guilty, why are you running?" "Running?" Xiangyang smiled. "The flame forest swamp is so big. Do we need to report to your Spirit Husbandry sect disciples if we want to do anything? No matter what, I'm going to check your storage bags to make sure you don't have Chao's soul essence," Li Dongming said with a fake smile. "Storage bags? Soul essence?" Xiao Hua smiled and said, "I'm stupid. I don't know what this soul essence is. How can it be placed in a storage bag?" Li Dongming was at a loss for words. With a flick of his sleeve, he took out his spirit storage bag and sneered, "Fellow Daoist Xiong, this Li doesn't want to pursue the matter. Hand over your junior brother's storage bags to this Li, and this Li will make the decision to let you all go. Don't make this Li lose his temper. These junior brothers of mine don't have good tempers." When Xiangyang heard this, he was so angry that his nose became crooked. What the hell was this? They had not even said a few words and they had already revealed their true colors. Their goal was the 4 or 5 storage bags on Xiao Hua's waist. Were they still disciples of a cultivation sect? They were even more shameless than rogue cultivators. Eldest senior brother, what's the point of talking to them? Xiao Hua immediately stood up and charged forward, blocking the path between Li Dongming and Xiangyang. He waved his hands and cast the spell that he had prepared long ago. Numerous fire dragons that were as thick as thumbs appeared in Xiao Hua's hands and charged towards the Spirit Husbandry sect disciples. Xiao Hua was proficient in fire spells, and in the past year, he had been controlling his spirit fire all the time. His understanding and usage of fire spells had reached a new level, and the fire aura in the flame forest swamp was abundant. When Xiao Hua cast the fire spell, the fire dragons that were as thick as thumbs appeared in his hands. After flying for about a foot, they immediately sucked in the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth, turning into fire dragons that were as thick as fists. Although the fire dragons were not as powerful as when Yi Yang's fan flashed, and they did not mimic the fire dragons perfectly, the spirit husbandry sect disciples were still caught off guard when they saw such a powerful fire dragon charging towards them. Many of them cast spells in panic, and some of them even took out the yellow talismans from their storage bags. However, how could Xiao Hua's fire dragons be broken by simple yellow talismans? The spirit husbandry sect disciples were shocked when they saw the surging heatwave surrounding them. The yellow talismans that they had shot out were extinguished after spinning in the heatwave for a short while. Even the yellow talismans were burned. They retreated rapidly and wanted to take out their magic treasures. However, just as everyone retreated, the fire dragon's tongue suddenly lapped in the direction that they had retreated. Then, it retracted and spread in all directions. The fire dragons connected together to form a wall of fire, separating the spirit husbandry sect disciples from Xiao Hua and the rest. The group of disciples could not help but gasp. Putting aside the strength of his magic power, his mastery of fire control was definitely something that they could not compare to. The disciples of the Thunder Control sect indeed live up to their reputation. This was the thought that suddenly appeared in their minds. However, was that all? Just as the spirit husbandry sect disciples were filled with admiration, they suddenly realized that their respected senior brother Li Dongming had actually been separated from them. Furthermore, he had been strangled by a spirit husbandry sect disciple who was in the initial stage of the Foundation establishment realm. The spirit husbandry sect disciples were stunned. They had really only paid attention to themselves and had not paid attention to anyone else, especially the extremely brave senior brother Li. Li Dongming was also extremely embarrassed. Like the other spirit husbandry sect disciples, his first reaction when he saw the ferocious fire dragon was to use the ice shield technique to block the fire dragon. However, the ice shield only lasted for a moment before it was melted by the fire dragon. Seeing that the fire dragon had turned into a sea of fire and was about to drown him, Li Dongming immediately retreated. However, just as he was about to fly, he instantly felt a sharp black iron needle stabbing towards his waist from his back. Li Dongming had no choice but to stop moving slightly. He swung his hand, and the thunder palm was released. However, just as the thunder palm was released, Xiao Hua, who was standing outside the sea of fire, suddenly moved. He charged into the sea of fire like a ferocious demon, and there seemed to be a spear in his hand. Demonic weapon? Li Dongming immediately understood with a sweep of his divine sense. Slightly startled, he hurriedly made a circle with his right hand, and a mirror-like defensive shield appeared to block the attack. At the same time, his figure once again plummeted downwards. However, it was clear that the defensive shield was easily broken by Xiao Hua, and Xiao Hua's figure was completely unaffected by the defensive shield. In the blink of an eye, he was already beside Li Dongming. Zila Lane only then did Li Dongming's thunder palm hit the black iron needle away. Xiao Hua's left hand reached out with the tip of the demonic spear and stabbed towards Li Dongming's chest. Li Dongming panicked and hurriedly waved his hand again, and the thunder palm was released again. However, just as the thunder palm was formed, Xiao Hua's left hand shook, and the demonic spear disappeared into thin air. What is this guy doing? Just as this thought appeared in Li Dongming's mind, Xiao Hua's right hand appeared around his neck like a ghost. A burst of light flashed, and the defensive yellow talisman around Li Dongming's body was actually crushed by Xiao Hua. That ice-cold hand was grabbing Li Dongming's neck. Fellow Daoist. Let's talk nicely. Li Dongming was extremely embarrassed, but the irresistible force around his neck made him feel despair, and he couldn't help but speak softly. Seeing this, the spirit husbandry sect disciples looked at each other. They didn't know if they should attack or save him. They were afraid of breaking the vases. Little junior brother. After building his foundation, he has indeed become much more powerful. Xiong was also astonished. He knew very well that even if he were to fight against Li Dongming, he would only be able to last a few rounds. If he didn't take out his magic weapon, he wouldn't be able to do anything. However, Xiao Hua didn't use any magic weapon at all, and he was able to grab the neck of a cultivator in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. He could kill him at any time. Xiao Hua raised his phoenix eyes and glanced at the spirit husbandry sect disciples outside the fire wall. He laughed coldly and said, "Fellow Daoist Li, there are so many people from your spirit husbandry sect. I'm really scared. My hand can't help but tremble." As he said that, Xiao Hua's hand trembled, and his strength increased again. Li Dongming almost suffocated, and he hurriedly said in a low voice, "Fellow Daoist, I was blind, cough cough. I've really offended you." Millimeter, seeing that Li Dongming immediately gave in, Xiao Hua also secretly praised him. This fellow knows how to adapt to the situation. Looks like my cultivation technique is settled. All right. Xiao Hua nodded and said loudly, "If you want your senior brother Li to live, then retract your divine sense. I have something to say to him." Then, he swung his hand and threw out a silence talisman. He looked at Li Dongming with a smile. Seeing Xiao Hua's malicious smile, Li Dongming suddenly had goosebumps all over his body. Like a weak girl, he begged, Fellow Daoist. What do you want?" When the spirit husbandry sect disciples heard Xiao Hua's words, they hurriedly retracted their divine sense, not daring to release it again. Seeing that there was no sound from the other side and that their vision was blocked, they all looked at each other in dismay once again. It was also very fast. It was only the time to brew a cup of tea. The wall of fire quickly faded away, and Xiao Hua and Li Dongming appeared in front of them again. Xiao Hua was full of smiles, but Li Dongming was a little forced. "Haha, fellow Daoist Li, your junior brothers are all looking at you, so you have to smile, okay? Don't let them see that there's something wrong with the two of us, or else, they'll be suspicious." Xiao Hua transmitted his voice. "Ha ha ha." Li Dongming laughed as expected, and said to his junior brothers around him, "It's really a big problem. This junior brother Xiao is a Foundation establishment fellow Daoist I met 2 years ago when I was training. Just now, I said that he looked a little familiar, so I didn't attack him. I didn't expect junior brother Xiao's temper to still be as fiery as 2 years ago when he just entered the Foundation establishment realm. He didn't even allow me to ask before attacking. Yes, because junior brother Xiao also had some doubts, he used a spell to ask me about the secret matters 2 years ago. Junior brothers, you don't have to worry. So that's how it is." Seeing Li Dongming say with a smile, everyone's hearts also calmed down. Only Xue was laughing so hard that she wanted to break into the sky. Xiong Yang and Yang Qinglian wanted to laugh, but didn't dare to. "Hehe, since you've already recognized me, I'm sure senior brother Li also understands that it's impossible for junior brother to have taken some soul essence from your esteemed sect. Moreover, junior brother is truly ashamed that he didn't tell senior brother about junior brother's origins." Xiao Hua said rather sincerely. No matter. Li Dongming waved his hand generously. "Every cultivator has their own secrets, so how can I investigate? I hope junior brother Xiao can come to my Black Spirit sect for a chat when you have time in the future." "Sure, I'll definitely go and nag senior brother Li in the future." Xiao Hua's expression was like that of a good friend who hadn't seen each other for a long time. He was really reluctant to part. Soon after, Li Dongming cupped his hands and left with his junior brothers. When everyone's figures disappeared, Xue couldn't help but giggle. She pointed at Xiao Hua and said, "Darling Xiao, you actually entered the Foundation establishment realm 3 years ago. How come I didn't know?" -8. Chapter 1913. I Can't Help It. In this world, only fellow Daoist Li from Spirit Husbandry sect knows that I built my foundation 3 years ago. I can't not give him face. Xiao Hua touched his nose and smiled. After Xue finished laughing, she quietly asked, "Darling Xiao, what did you say to Li Dongming?" "Hehe, fellow Daoist Xue, I told fellow Daoist Li Dongming clearly that only he and I can know about it. Other people can't know about it. That's why I can't tell you," Xiao Hua said proudly. Looking at Xiao Hua's smug look, Shue pouted and said, "Tell me if you want. If you don't tell me, I'm too lazy to know." "Ha ha ha tilde let's go." Xiong Yang laughed. He knew that Xiao Hua must have gotten something good. Moreover, it was probably some secret of spirit husbandry sect. Otherwise, Li Dongming wouldn't have played along with Xiao Hua. As they continued to walk forward, although they encountered several groups of cultivators, most of them were early-stage foundation-building disciples. There were even quite a few aura-refining disciples who were respectful and reverent toward Xiao Hua and the others. Xiao Hua had finally gotten addicted to acting as a senior several times with great difficulty, so he really enjoyed watching them bow and salute him. Young Master is now also a foundation-building senior. A few more days passed. Seeing that they were about to arrive at Shihuang village, Xiong Yang asked, "Junior brother, have you and junior sister Shue decided on where to go?" Xiao Hua looked at Shue and smiled. "As long as Shue wants to go, I'll go with her. Who cares if it's the end of the world or the corner of the sea? Junior sister Shue, I really envy you. Originally, I wanted to go see Kuehe Sea. Who knew that the heavens would play tricks on me? I just came out and you want to go back." Yang Qinglian hugged Xiong Zhili. Her charm was really charming. She regained the demeanor of a famous beauty from Imperial Thunder Sect when she was young. "Junior sister Shue is so happy. Others can't even envy you." Shue smiled. "Then you're still waiting for the trip to Kuehe Sea?" Shue looked at Xiao Hua and said happily, "As long as I have you with me, not to mention Kuehe Sea, I'm willing to go to Tiannan or Debei." Ha 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 tilde Xiong Yang looked at Xiao Hua and Shue's lovey-dovey scene and laughed happily. Shihuang town was just around the corner. Just as Xiao Hua and the others were about to descend from the sky, they saw 3 foundation building cultivators across from them. Their faces were filled with anxiety as they hurriedly flew towards them. The one in front had a face as white as jade and 3 strands of long beard under his chin. He had the appearance of an immortal. "Hey, this person looks familiar." When Xiao Hua saw this mid-foundation establishment cultivator, he couldn't help but stare blankly. He seemed to recognize him, but since he was a mid-foundation establishment senior, Xiao Hua naturally had an impression of him. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua had no impression of him at all. Strange. Xiao Hua unconsciously glanced at the cultivator. The cultivator also noticed and glanced at Xiao Hua. Seeing that he was a foundation building cultivator and that there were 2 mid-foundation building cultivators behind him, he didn't say anything and just coldly snorted. He cupped his hands towards Xiong Yang and Yang Qinglian and left without saying a word. Xiong Yang was also surprised. Looking at the cultivator's back, he asked, "Junior brother, do you know this person?" Xiao Hua shook his head. "He looks familiar, but I really haven't seen him before, so I took a second look." Oh tilde Xiong Yang didn't take it seriously and said with a smile, "Not to mention the cultivators of the Dawn Rain continent, even the cultivators of my country of Xi are like carps crossing the river. There really are many of them. You wouldn't know any cultivators you've seen before, so it's normal that you don't have any impression of him." Xiao Hua also didn't think so and said with a smile, "Forget it, who cares who he is? Let's respectfully send off senior brother, senior sister, and Xiao Zhili. He, don't forget your promise." Xiong Yang glanced at Xiong Zhili, who was in Yang Qinglian's arms, and said with a smile, "Don't worry." Xiao Hua patted his chest. "I can still guarantee this." Immediately, Xiong Yang stopped in midair, no longer moving forward. "Hey, senior brother," Xiao Hua asked curiously, "why aren't you moving?" Xiong Yang clapped his hands and took out the concealed thunderbolt sound transmitting talisman he used last time. Xiao Hua suddenly understood, but then he said with surprise, "Why is senior brother looking for the Imperial Thunder Sect disciple on duty?" "Junior brother, just wait and see," Xiong Yang said rather mysteriously. After the concealed thunderbolt sound transmitting talisman was sent out, a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator slowly flew over, looked at Xiong Yang and the others, and also said slowly, "Which Imperial Thunder Sect's Thunder Palace disciple are you? What business do you have?" Seeing that the disciple on duty was actually a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator, Xiong Yang was delighted. He clapped his hands, took out 2 tokens, and handed them over, saying, I am Xiong Yang from Thunderbolt Palace, and this is I's token. That cultivator waved his hand, and the 2 tokens fell into his hand. He scanned them with his divine sense, then frowned and said, this is Martial Uncle Zhenyi's token. What does it mean? Good, senior brother knows that Martial Uncle Zhenyi has already died, and his corpse is in I's storage pouch. Martial Uncle Zhenyi was my Thunderbolt Palace's alchemist, and his storage pouch is on I. Moreover, Xiong Yang's following words were transmitted. Oh! That disciple's face was shocked, and then he vigilantly scanned with his divine sense. He clapped his hands and handed over his token, saying, I am Qian Ping, and this is I's token. Xiong Yang didn't dare to be careless. He took the token, looked at it, and smiled. Thank you, senior brother Qian. No problem. Qian Ping took the token and returned the 2 tokens to Xiong Yang, saying, Junior brother Xiong, please wait for a moment. I will inform a few senior brothers to come and escort you back to Imperial Thunder Sec. After Qian Ping flew away, Xiao Hua secretly gave a thumbs up, saying, Big senior brother, you're really something. I never thought of this before. There's no other way. Xiong Yang looked at Yang Qinglian and the child in her arms, and said lovingly, now that you have a child, you have to be careful. Moreover, escorting the remains of my Imperial Thunder Sect's alchemists and other things is also the duty of disciples like senior brother Qian Ping. Xiao Hua understood that Zhenyi's storage pouch not only contained spirit herbs, but also pill recipes and even cultivation methods. These were all treasures of the Imperial Thunder Sect. If they were lost outside, it would definitely be a loss. If Xiong Yang brought them back, it would be a great merit. There was no need to mention the cultivation methods and items from other sect. Sigh, thinking of this, Xiao Hua lost interest in the 4 storage bags he took. Big senior brother will probably take the cultivation methods back. Speaking of this, Xiong Yang was slightly surprised, and said curiously, but it's also strange. This senior brother Qian Ping is a disciple of Imperial Thunder Palace, and from his name, he should be a direct disciple of Imperial Thunder Palace. Why would he be on duty at Western Yellow Village? It's really puzzling. Hihi, then I'll have to ask senior brother Qian. Xiao Hua smiled, but his heart was moved, thinking to himself, could it be that Imperial Thunder Palace sent a disciple out for Qian Qinghua? Thinking of Qian Qinghua, Xiao Hua's thoughts unconsciously flew. 8. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,